His name is Bak. Tune in to Guess Who's Bak with Chase Geiser, only at chasegeiser.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, boy, do we ever have a show for you this evening. As many of you know, I'm sure all of you know, we had the beginning of the Tyler Robinson saga today. And it was just a preliminary court hearing. Erika Kirk appeared. We're going to get into all the details of that. But I want to start by just providing a little bit of context to the listener. And Bak's got a bunch of clips prepared. Everything's going to be outstanding. About the nature of TPUSA, Charlie Kirk, where we're at with this trial, and what seems to be actually going on. Because what we're hearing from the mainstream media is not the truth. What we're hearing in this trial is not the truth. Even the defense attorneys are dismissive of so-called, quote, fringe conspiracy theorists in their allegations regarding the nature of this assassination, this crime, not just against Charlie Kirk, but frankly, a crime against our nation. And I want to explore a little bit some of the incentives as to why this may have taken place. Now, the official narrative is that Charlie Kirk was killed by a disgruntled, delusional, perhaps, young man named Tyler Robinson, who was sympathetic, perhaps even in an intimate relationship with someone from the transgender community. And as a result of his love and affection for transgenderism, he had animosity and antagonism toward Charlie Kirk. Someone, of course, who believed that you're either born a man or a woman, and it's dependent upon your XX or XY chromosomes. He defined a woman as an adult female with two X chromosomes. Something deeply offensive to the incelibate left, to the transgender community, to those who are friendly toward or allies with the transgender community, because after all, they believe that a woman is defined as anyone who identifies as a woman. They define a woman with the word woman. Of course, we know from grade school that you can't define a word by using the word. So the official narrative is because of this mentally ill element of the left, this kind of Marxist, anarchist, socialist, deranged critical theory element of the left, because of their just inherent violence and involuntary celibacy and SSRIs and pent-up anxiety, it was inevitable that someone like Tyler Robinson would manifest and wish to commit violence against someone like Charlie Kirk. Someone perceived to be a voice for everything that is the antithesis of this leftist, Marxist, mentally ill delusion, which is true, of course. And the explanation is, as a result of this antagonism, we have this lone gunman, similar to like a Thomas Crooks, who, of course, attempted to assassinate Donald Trump, if you believe the official narrative, and the Columbine shooters, or any of these other mass shooters like Adam Lanza, or whatever the gentleman's name was from the Colorado shooting who looked like the Joker. We've seen this before. We've seen not just predictive programming, but prescriptive programming in the way of these shooters. Many of them patsies. Certainly some of them patsies. Going all the way back to Lee Harvey Oswald, to the guy that shot John Lennon, you name it. We've seen it. It's predictive and prescriptive, and this has been used as the official narrative, the official explanation for what happened to Charlie Kirk. But what no one talks about pertaining to Charlie Kirk, except for a few like Candace Owens and others, what no one talks about pertaining to Charlie Kirk is the extent to which TPUSA became an incredibly powerful political force. You see, on the surface, to normies, Turning Point USA seems like this cute nonprofit that happened to be successful at raising a tremendous amount of money with a mission and objective and goal of visiting college campuses or having chapters in college campuses all over the United States in order to win over the youth, convert the youth to the conservative movement, make conservatism cool, ensure that the left doesn't have a monopoly on the hearts and minds of our young adults, our young voters going to college and voting for perhaps the first time. And I do believe, of course, that was part of Turning Point's mission. It certainly was a major part of what they did. But what people don't really talk about is the extent to which TPUSA was actually supplanting and replacing the RNC as a political force, as a political entity. Not only was it hyper-funded, but it had established infrastructure which the traditional conservative party had neglected in the way of political campaigning. And we saw the results of that in 2020. I do believe that the 2020 election was largely stolen just due to the fact that they changed all the rules of the election at the last hour and everything shifted. And it was a disadvantage for conservatives during that time because only the Democrats had the infrastructure in place to do things like massive ballot harvesting, massive door knocking, particularly in the swing states. But what TPUSA decided to do after 2020 was establish the infrastructure which Charlie had determined would never be successfully or correctly established by the RNC. And he reached out to third-party nonprofits, organizations, entities, professionals, consultants, advisors, an example of which is Cliff Maloney from PHA, somebody who I consider a close friend. He reached out to these entities, used funding from TPUSA, and paid them to hire door knockers to knock in conservative counties in swing states in low propensity areas. So these are swing states, obviously. These are people who do not typically show up to vote, or they have a lower than desired likelihood to vote, and they're all conservative minded. And TPUSA did what the RNC was supposed to do, built the infrastructure, knocked on the doors, and won the votes. And that's why Donald Trump in 2024 won every single swing state in the United States of America in the election. It's because of the work of TPUSA, not the RNC, not even the Trump campaign, no other political action committee. It's because of TPUSA. And so what Charlie was able to do as a civilian, not somebody appointed to be the chairman of the RNC, not somebody who was elected, not somebody who was a formal member of the political establishment, but as an informal authority who spent years building up an audience and influence and followers and funding, as a civilian, he was able to have a monopoly on how voters would vote in the swing states for every presidential election moving forward. What Charlie did, in other words, was make himself a kingmaker. And there's nothing wrong with that. I believe that Charlie Kirk was a good man. I didn't always agree with him. I was very critical of him while he was alive, but I believe he was a good person with good intentions. And so he built this political power where he could basically, moving forward from 2024 on into the future indefinitely, determine how all of the swing states would vote in any presidential election. He could veto any Republican candidate by refusing to support their campaign, by refusing to knock and walk and get the votes in all these swing states. Charlie Kirk made himself, as a civilian, an indefinite with no term limits kingmaker. Certainly for the Republican Party. Could make or break any candidate. And that is a lot of power in the hands of one man. This is something that could have intimidated the Central Intelligence Agency, for example. It's very dangerous to have one man control the nature of the votes of all the swing states. This is something that could have intimidated just the Republican Party, generally speaking. It's something that could have intimidated all of the contractors and members of the military-industrial complex that want more share of the stake of what it takes to determine who becomes the president of the United States. It's also something that could be very intimidating for our so-called allies overseas, who are very sensitive as to whom should be the president of the United States. And yes, of course, I'm thinking of our so-called allies, including primarily Israel. Now, I don't know who was involved with certainty in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I don't know whether it was the CIA. I don't know whether it was a military-industrial contractor. I don't know whether it was security teams or other assassins that were paid off by some shadow entity. I don't know whether it was Israel. You name it, I don't know. I don't know if it was the Trump administration. I have no idea with certainty. I have my ideas. I have my intuition, my speculation, but I don't know who was responsible for the assassination of Charlie Kirk. What I do know is that Charlie Kirk was not killed by Tyler Robinson with the rifle and the round that they said did kill him. Do I believe that Tyler Robinson was there? Very likely. Did he have the rifle? Probably, very likely. Was he on the roof? Maybe, probably, very likely. But there's always a patsy in the event of a formal assassination. Traditionally speaking, in the United States of America, the CIA has been responsible for providing the patsy, and Israel has been involved in providing the assassination. I think the primary example of this is the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Lee Harvey Oswald said himself that he was a patsy. And what is it? How is it a coincidence that one lone shooter one rogue shooter was responsible for the death of the president of the United States, and then one rogue shooter was responsible for the death of the one rogue shooter. There's just too many coincidences. We all know that was highly suspicious, that it was a hit. And it makes sense, of course, with JFK, that he was assassinated in conspiracy or in collaboration with Israel because, after all, JFK was antagonistic toward Israel's desire for nuclear proliferation, something the CIA deeply wanted during that time in order to counter the advancement and growth of Russia's nuclear capabilities. But I digress. What I believe we saw with the assassination of Charlie Kirk was Tyler Robinson placed there in some sort of MK Ultra fashion, and he probably was somebody that hated Charlie Kirk, so that he could be blamed for a much more formal assassination. I don't believe that it was a round that shot him in the neck. I believe it was the lapel mic with a shape charge inside of it. We've seen evidence from Candace to this effect. I believe that there were security officials or military officials or some type of entity wearing maroon, a whole slew of them, so they could identify each other at the event. I believe it's highly suspicious that the camera from behind Charlie was removed. Highly suspicious that 10 inches of soil on the site which he was assassinated was removed and then paved over. And then the Denali in which he was rushed off to the hospital in was immediately sold after the fact. It's very suspicious that the stories don't add up between the different entities or individuals that were involved in what happened in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's injury, his attack, his murder, his assassination. And we'll get into all of those details. And I'm not coming here tonight with answers, but this trial is beginning. And I want to make some predictions in response to the fact that we're seeing these preliminary hearings. I predict that Tyler Robinson's defense will neglect some of the most important, most obvious aspects of this assassination that could vindicate him. I think his defense is going to neglect the fact that there's no way the round they claimed shot Charlie Kirk would have had such minimal damage to his neck. I saw a video of a 3-06 today go through, I think, 4 or 5 cast iron pans, but it couldn't go through a neck, flesh, and go through cast iron, but not through flesh. But I don't think we're going to see that brought up at all in this trial. I think it's going to be standard boilerplate BS, and I think this is going to be a show trial. I think it is going to be corrupted and handled. And look, I don't know the nature of Erika Kirk. I don't know if she knew that Charlie was going to be assassinated, if she was in on it. But what I do know is that there was tremendous amount of incentive for the powers that be within our own deep state and internationally, whether the CIA, the FBI, military-industrial complex as a whole, political establishments as a whole, or Israel, a tremendous amount of incentive to dissolve and unravel TPUSA because of the monopoly that it established on the voting outcomes in the swing states of the United States of America. And I believe that what we're seeing now, whether Erika Kirk is aware of this or not, is the intentional handling of her, the intentional advising of her in order to weaken and undermine the strength, power, and integrity of Turning Point USA so that it loses all political power and the establishment can reassert itself in the dynamic of our elections. And this is what I want to be mindful of in the coming weeks and months as we watch this hearing unfold. Not just the coordinated campaigns against Candace Owens or others who are skeptical of the official narrative of the death, assassination of Charlie Kirk, but I want to be mindful of what they're going to leave out. Pay attention to what they don't talk about. Pay attention to what the defense attorneys neglect, because if these defense attorneys representing Tyler Robinson show a jury what a 3-06 round can do to any number of objects, let alone flesh, there is no way in hell that this jury is going to find Tyler Robinson guilty, whether or not he was involved. He probably was involved, or he maybe was involved. He probably was there, or he maybe was there. He probably did have the rifle. He may have even fired a round. But it was not the death blow to Charlie Kirk. That was a shape charge from the lapel mic. I can say so with 99.9% certainty. Bak, what are your thoughts?
Alluding to the fact it was going to happen 24 hours ahead of time. And then the patsy was set up.
Unless that was planted information for the purpose of making it seem more likely that he actually committed the crime.
All right, well, there's only 3 things I know for a fact. And other than that, you know, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they did this to themselves by covering this shit up. When you create a power vacuum for authority on information, the conspiracy theory is going to run wild. And we're entitled to them at this point. You don't want to be transparent. You want to have this massive ongoing cover-up almost a year into this case, the most high-profile assassination since JFK, MLK, Malcolm X. We're going to speculate, baby. That's what it's all about. Let the speculation begin.
It's astounding the similarities between the most famous terrorists or assassins in the Latin half of the 20th century and into the 21st century, all the way going back to Lee Harvey Oswald. Charlie Manson's an example of this. The gentleman who I forget who assassinated John Lennon, obviously the Unabomber, Oklahoma City bombing. These are all people deeply connected to MK Ultra or the bases or the universities explicitly associated with MK Ultra. It's obvious to me that this is something that happened as a result of an unchecked military industrial complex and intelligence community in the United States, because we didn't see bizarre stuff like this happen at all in the United States before 1950. It was all in the aftermath of World War II that we saw these bizarre assassinations, these bizarre terrorist attacks. I mean, I guess you could go back to John Wilkes Booth and use that as an example, but there was a civil war. I mean, there was obviously a lot of incentive for many people to want to assassinate Abraham Lincoln. He was perceived as a tyrant in the South. That one makes sense to me. But out of nowhere, just in the last 75 years, for some reason, we get these rogue, involuntarily celibate lunatics who decide to commit all these crimes, some of them very high IQ, some of them explicitly known to be associated with MK Ultra. And everybody's just dismissive of the fact that MK Ultra was involved. Everybody's just fine with the fact that the CIA was able to get away with deleting all of the documentation after it came to the public's attention that that program existed. Everybody's fine with the fact that we don't know what the hell happened with JFK or MLK. Everybody's fine with the fact that Donald Trump himself called off the investigation into Thomas Crooks, who allegedly attempted to assassinate him. Why is nobody demanding answers to these questions? Why are we allowing our political establishment to get away with pretending that there's, quote, nothing to see here?
I'll do you one better. I'm gonna get real conspiratorial tonight. These, ever since the creation of the CIA from the OSS, you have seen MK Ultra styled ritualized satanic murders.
Do you believe that Charlie Kirk's assassination was a full-on public ritual?
Absolutely. I think Butler was a public ritual too. These are ritualized killings meant to cause shock and awe and trauma across the nation. And the Satanists that are in charge of all these different entities, like the CIA, like the NSA, like Homeland Security, state and federal police, they are feeding the satanic Illuminati system and then using this as a form of lesser and greater magic for their next task, whatever that may be. But they need the trauma of a nation because they feed off of it, because these are demonic entities within human bodies. What do you think about that?
I mean, I don't even know what to say. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised at anything. You know, I come from a skeptical background. I come from a background of somebody who I believe that the simplest explanation is the most likely. I believe in pragmatism. I believe in, faith when reason sinks exhausted, in not defaulting to supernatural or spiritual explanations when there could be a very human explanation. But I don't disrespect or disregard any of those notions whatsoever. I'm someone of faith. I believe that Jesus Christ died and literally came back from the dead. I believe that there is a spiritual war both on the physical plane and the metaphysical plane between good and evil. I believe in what you would see in a Keanu Reeves movie like Constantine, that there's this constant tug of war happening between good and evil.
I love Constantine. That's a good movie.
And we're sitting on the threshold and we're being pulled like something from the Screw Tape Letters with C.S. Lewis by demons and angels, on either shoulder. So I'm not dismissive of your take on it whatsoever, but I would have to see a tremendous amount of evidence to get to a point where I was just thoroughly convinced that it was explicitly or intentionally a satanic ritual. Certainly what happened to Charlie Kirk was the will and work of Satan. It's absolutely satanic what happened. When human beings engage in evil behavior, it is a form of Satanism, whether it's intended to be or not. Even people with good intentions who commit evil are inadvertently doing the work or will of Satan. So regardless of whether it was Tyler Robinson on a roof and he just happened to be a lunatic and he was actually rogue and he wasn't MK Ultra or whatever, if it was really the official narrative, it was still satanic. But I'd have to see more evidence to believe that this was a formal satanic ritual and they put Charlie directly in a pentagram. I've heard some comments like that. I just haven't looked at that enough to say with certainty. But I do believe, if I were to guess what happened, my guess would be that the CIA and Mossad conspired together to assassinate Charlie Kirk because they saw that TPUSA was dangerous as a political entity because it was totally independent and untethered to the political establishment and able to determine which Republican candidate would win or not indefinitely into the future because of the infrastructure that it established. It was just too powerful. So I believe that the CIA manipulated, used Tyler Robinson, placed him there. And I don't know this with certainty. I'm just telling you where I'm at now. I'm subject to changing my mind at any moment with more evidence, more study, more time committed to this. But I believe that he was placed there. And I believe that the assassination took place with the lapel mic. And I think that it was Mossad that did it because Charlie Kirk was steering away from his support for Israel. He was against the war with Iran. The war with Iran is something that the military-industrial complex, regardless of its corruption and desire to make money, wanted for the sake of protecting the petrodollar. The Lindsey Grahams, the Ted Cruzes, and others love it. Obviously, Israel loves it because of the Greater Israel Project. I think they killed him because they knew that the long-term security and interests in the Middle East would be undermined by a TPUSA that could choose a president that said, fuck you, to the establishment. And I believe that Charlie Kirk was transforming from a young, naive, idealistic boy who started this organization into a sophisticated political operator who understood and finally was aware of just the depth of the depravity and corruption in our political establishment, our political system here in the United States of America. And he was determined as a servant of God to undermine that, reverse that, unravel that in any capacity possible. And as soon as he had made that decision and reached that awareness, that was when he became an enemy of the powers that be, an enemy of the entities that operate within or in conjunction with our deep state. And I believe as a result of that, they killed him, they blamed it on a patsy, and they're engaged in a sophisticated propaganda campaign right now to undermine anyone who says anything different, whether it's you or me or Harrison Smith or Candace Owens or Shawn Ryan. There is a sophisticated campaign occurring right before our eyes with bots and Mark Levin's and these establishment elites to shut down any individual with any semblance of an audience who is attempting to uncover or discover what actually took place on that fateful day in our history.
It's more than just taking out a kingmaker. This reminds me of Lion King, when Scar was going to kill Simba, but they just settled for killing Simba's dad. So Charlie Kirk, at such a young age, was already such an influence wielder. He was already a kingmaker. He could swing elections.
He did not establish that level of power until between 2020 and 2024. He was influential before, in the same way that InfoWars is influential. I mean, he had a huge audience. He had pull. He had political sway. He had massive virality. But he crossed a line when he actually developed the funding and the labor and the infrastructure to determine voting outcomes in the swing states in a way beyond just having influence over college kids on campuses all over the United States.
Well, that proves the next point I was going to get into was so in such a rapid amount of time, he was able to assemble this political machine and be a kingmaker in his 30s, right?
It seemed rapid, but he was working on it for, almost 20 years.
Since 2016, I would say, that I've
known
of.
I think he started TPUSA when he was 18, right? So 12 years?
He could have ran for president and possibly run and won in his 40s or 50s.
Yes, he was going to be the president of the United States. I don't know if it was going to be in 28 or 32 or 36.
Yeah. I don't know about 28, but
32 probably, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. In the 2030s, he has a legitimate chance. And then if you allow him with this much political capital, this much funding, this much influence wielding, to then pick a solid team, like a vice president, the heads of the departments in the cabinet, like he could have been damn near untouchable at one point politically.
He had to go.
He had to go, especially if you're going to... He didn't take that BB money. And isn't it suspicious that I actually seen that BB trolled, and he was trolling JFK by saying how great of a man he was on JFK's birthday before. Never forget this great American.
Saying how great of a man JFK was?
Yeah, this was on a social media post. I don't have the post
That's
with
like
me.
when the mafia shows up to your funeral after they whack you.
Exactly. So then isn't it suspicious, like what, 2 days after? Kirk's, I had nothing to do with this. I did not do this. Like,
have you looked into Israel's funding for clavicular?
No, I know Peter Thiel's been trying to get in his ass, though.
We can talk. We'll talk more about that after the show. We need to do a show dedicated and committed to unraveling what's happening with clavicular, because it's serious.
You think it's that serious?
Yeah.
What's
I'm not prepared to talk about it yet because I want to look into it more. I don't want to be irresponsible.
So you think he's going to be a major influence wielder?
No, I don't. I just think the same powers that support clavicular support some of the people that are associated with him or have recently been associated with him.
Do you think they're the same people who brought up Huck Tua?
No.
Spit on that thing.
No. That was organic. She was cute.
Dude,
we'll talk more about it. Right. Let's go back into the Charlie Kirk thing.
Well, hold on. I want to take this time to shout out our super chats. Thank you, Mushi. He sent corgis, which are dogs, for 1,000 jewels. Thank you, Cracksmokes42069, for the trophies for the 1,000 jewels. Thank you, Mr. C, USA Patriot. He's an ardent supporter for the GOAT trophy. And thank you, SRT Not Foreign, for the super chat for $5. We really appreciate that. He says, don't forget the Ackman payment that went out immediately to the parents to silence questions before Tyler was established killer. Very interesting.
And by the way, the
guys.
best way to support the show is to subscribe on YouTube and give us super chats. We want to do this show 5 nights a week. Now we can only do it for 3 nights a week. We want to build a bigger studio. We want to do the whole thing. We're committed to this for the long haul. We're going to give it at least 18 months and assess every 18 months. But I want to do this show with Bak for the rest of my life, and I want to have an impact. So please do what you can to support us by either going to chasegeiser.com and becoming a founding member, or just subscribing to the YouTube channel, obviously engaging in super chats as much as you can. We know times are tough. Inflation is rampant. The economy is a struggle, and so many people are living paycheck to paycheck. We don't feel entitled to your support or your money. If you're not in a position right now where you can commit or support financially this show, this operation, it's just as good for you to pray for us, subscribe everywhere we are, and share the content. Go ahead, Bob.
We're going to build a goddamn network, baby. We're going to fuck Bill Gates up so bad. You're fucked, dude. We're coming for you. If you with BB, and fuck you too. Anyways, should we play our first clip of the night?
Yeah, but give me a second. Go, finish your thought. I interrupted you rudely. Do you remember what your thought was?
Oh, my last thought was Hawk 2. Spin on that thing.
Yeah, I know, but I interrupted you when I talked about clavicular. You were about ready to make a point. I'm sorry I did that.
Oh, it's gone, baby.
It's gone. It'll come back.
It's all right.
All right. So Bill Ackman.
Oh, Hackman. He said maybe he meant Ackman.
It's probably Ackman. Charlie Kirk.
H. Ackman.
Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, was fatally shot. Right. Ackman's involvement. Billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman, Pershing Square Capital, publicly added $1 million to the reward for information leading to the shooter's arrest and capture, on top of the FBI's initial $100,000. He also announced plans for a $1 million endowment fund to support Kirk's family, structured to provide ongoing income, 5% annual payouts with emergency access. Ackman stated he would pay the reward if it is earned, per FBI guidance, even after the father's role in the surrender became known. This was part of a broader wave of support and fundraising after high profile. Okay. So I wonder if the parents of Tyler Robinson received the reward for turning in their son.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. What was the reward for?
It was $1 million from Ackman and $100,000 from the FBI.
So it was 1.1?
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, man, I should have caught Robinson. Shit. We could fund the whole network if I just got my hands on Robinson, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good super chat right there. I didn't even know that. See, I've got so much to learn. That's why it's important for people to do super chats and comment.
Well, the chat is like the fourth column for us. You know what I mean? They really help out a lot with the show. It's like OSINT.
There's no public confirmation that the family received or claimed the money. I bet you they got it privately.
Yeah, maybe it would muddle the case if there's too much financial incentive.
I don't know. I mean, obviously it provides incentive for people to give false information, but I bet you they collected that money.
I mean, it went somewhere. There's no way they didn't collect that bag. What a bag.
Wow. Okay, now I'm ready to talk about clips a little bit. What do you have for us? Obviously, the preliminary hearing began today. Tyler Robinson was there. It was alleged that Robinson was laughing as Erika Kirk wept. I didn't see any footage to that effect. It may exist. It could just be, part of the psyop.
Well, don't forget, 9 months ago, he was wearing that trans tie, too. You remember that? He had the tie that was the trans flag.
I believe you. I just don't remember it.
Yeah. Well,
I have honestly not looked into this on a level of most of our audience, probably, just because I've been so busy and I try to cover all the news. And I haven't dedicated so much time to it like Candace Owens has, because she's able to do that. She's in a position, God bless her, to do that. So I can learn from you and the audience on this. But I do know for a fact, because I know the people close to TPUSA. Hell, I was backstage, with JD Vance and Jack Posobiec and others at a TP Action event with Alex Jones before the election. So I was close to TP Action. I didn't ever work for them in a formal capacity, but I definitely know a lot of people very closely connected or working for TPUSA or TP Action. And I am aware that Charlie Kirk did establish total political dominance in the swing states.
This is so confusing because there's a faction on the right, maybe even the left too, that thinks this was a faked staged death to protect Charlie. There's a faction in MAGA or former MAGA that believes that he was killed by Israel with the help of the CIA.
That's where I lean.
That's where I lean too. And then there's the whole Trantifa angle too, with that guy who was a paid actor saying, I wanted him to get away. We can establish that as a fourth fact.
when you establish a patsy, you want the patsy to be as plausible of a candidate or killer or culprit as possible, right? Like Lee Harvey Oswald was somebody that was, alleged to have spent a tremendous amount of time in Russia during the Cold War. He's alleged to have been someone who was very sympathetic to communism and the Communist Party. He was so sympathetic to Russia, allegedly, that you can even look at footage or images of him wearing his wedding ring on his right hand, which is something that the Russians did, not Americans, right? And so he was somebody who it was believable in the height of the Cold War that he could have been responsible for assassinating the president. Same with Tyler Robinson. You want somebody as a patsy who's likely mentally ill, who's likely predisposed to violence, who's likely malleable, who's likely antagonistic toward the mark or the target of the assassination. And so, yeah, I have no trouble believing that Trantifa hated Charlie Kirk and Tyler Robinson was somehow involved. I just cannot believe that he was solely responsible for the assassination of Charlie Kirk when I consider all of the context and all of the surrounding evidence. It's bizarre that TPUSA lied about the extent to which Charlie Kirk was feeling alienated towards the Zionist movement. It's bizarre that Bibi Netanyahu was among the first leaders to come out and say that Charlie was such a close friend of Israel. It's bizarre that Erika Kirk has reversed many of the positions or trajectories of TPUSA, namely the war with Iran, which Charlie was explicitly opposed to right before his death in a very clear and emotional and logical way. And she totally backpedaled from that. He was obviously supportive of Thomas Massie, and she backpedaled from that. And so we have seen TPUSA completely switch from the direction it was heading toward hardcore America first. It has completely jumped the fork, crossed the chasm into this neoconservative, traditional establishment Republican BS. And that's happened since his death, and it certainly would not have happened had he not been assassinated. And we know who gained the most from his assassination. It was our current military-industrial complex. It was our current political
establishment. He was against the Iran war.
It was our current political establishment, and it was Israel.
The one thing that doesn't make sense to me is it would support the patsy narrative to go after the Trantifa, because their messages, this is verified, they were alluding to it 24 hours and leading up. We have that guy on camera pointing before the fact, right before it happened. Remember that guy that was pointing? We know that actor was there. We know that Robinson has a furry boyfriend. So why wouldn't you arrest this Trantifa cell to support that patsy narrative? Why would you quash it Cash is on record saying,
So you're
we
saying
don't
the
believe
fact
we
that
could have gotten
Tyler,
a conviction.
you're saying the fact that Tyler was the only one who was questioned or arrested is bizarre if they're trying
because it would
to
have,
blame it.
yes,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
would have supported their narrative.
Yeah, unless
It gets too messy arresting them.
A deeper dive investigating those people could actually undermine their prosecution of Tyler.
I mean, the biggest travesty that could possibly happen is if this kid actually did not do it.
I don't think he did it. I think he was probably there. He might not have even been there, but I don't think he
They
did
could
it.
frame any one of us.
100%. And there's even evidence to suggest that the assassination attempt on Donald Trump was actually an intentional assassination of Comparatori.
Yeah, that would go to my ritual sacrifice, and then he would do anything.
It's not
if
even
that's
the
true.
ritual sacrifice. It's the fact that Corey Comparatori, I think his name's Corey Comparatori. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Or Compator, whatever.
Yeah, Compator.
hard to
He had a
pronounce.
close friend who worked for a company that worked with the material used in shape charges.
Don't forget when
And
that
he died.
Tennessee factory blew
Yeah,
up too.
and he died. Corey's friend or Comparator's friend died in a freak explosion accident of that same material. And
that factory in Tennessee
I'm saying
produces that same material.
they might have killed Corey on purpose.
Yeah, man, I don't believe anything anymore.
He wasn't even supposed to be sitting behind the president, and they moved him at the event to the seat that he was in. It's very suspicious.
Yeah, ritualized satanic killing.
It's all satanic.
Even look at, so I was in a space where we were talking about, is Trump a bond slave to Israel with that whole, remember we were talking about that prophecy about Cyrus the Great and how he'll have his ear marked and then he'll lose his shoes and all that stuff happened to Trump. Make it real. Imagine if Trump just WWE'd his ear when he went down. He's like, with razor blade.
I don't know. I don't know what happened, but it makes no sense whatsoever that Donald Trump, based on everything that we absolutely explicitly know about him, would call off the investigation of his own assassin when, if that assassination attempt was genuinely, as the narrative describes, that investigation would only have served to bolster and strengthen the Trump administration and his political influence.
Well, if it was the DNC, he'd have that over them, at the very least for extortion and blackmail. If it was Bibi, he could have that over him as extortion and blackmail to get him under control during this war. None of this makes sense other than he took, what was it, $200 million from Mariam Adelson?
Something like, I think it was more than that.
$300 million?
It was a lot.
That's Lil Wayne's whole career
Yeah.
in one campaign donation, dude.
Yep. And it's known that the deal in that exchange was that Israel would be given the green light to totally annex the Gaza Strip.
Mm-hmm.
That was what the money was for.
When we should be annexing Canada. This is fucking bullshit. Anyways, should we play our first clip of the night? That was quite a breakdown. Shit. Who's the third? Can you guess who the third party would
Yeah,
be?
and if it's so fringe, then why is it relevant for you to mention on the mainstream media?
Exactly,
Because
right?
you want everybody, all the normies, to have an opinion about
Mm-hmm.
this movement, which is fringe. No, you want the normies to have an opinion about this movement, which is actually huge.
Yeah. They look at them trying to frame the narrative and steer the discussion away. Oh, you're fringe.
So
You know?
Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old charged with the aggravated murder of Charlie Kirk, is being defended by a court-appointed team of experienced Capitol defense attorneys as he qualified for public representation.
Oh my God, he has a public defender.
They gave him his lawyer, which is just not proof, but it's just overwhelmingly suspicious.
Bro, if you have a public defendant, you might as
I don't
well
care
just
how
go to jail.
I don't care how broke you are. If your son is accused of assassinating someone like Charlie Kirk, you find a way to get the money together. You mortgage the house, you whatever you have to do in order to get a real attorney, not public defenders, to do this. And these public defenders, they all have ambitions to be DAs one day, to be prosecutors one day, and they're never going to go against the establishment.
Even on the public defender side, if you were an aspiring lawyer and you were talented, you would take this pro bono.
Catherine N. Nestor, Salt Lake City-based Nestor Lewis firm, lead counsel. She has over 30 years of trial experience, including multiple murder and capital cases in state and federal courts. She previously served in federal defender roles and is also representing high-profile clients in other Utah cases. So she's distracted. Michael N. Burt from California, nationally recognized capital defense expert with significant death penalty case experience. So that implies to me a plea deal or trying to get him out of the death penalty. Like they've already, by hiring him, you're already conceding that he's guilty because this is somebody that specializes in death penalty. So death penalty is only relevant if you get convicted.
Oh, they're gonna kill his ass, dude.
Richard
they don't
G.
want
Novak,
him talking.
veteran criminal defense attorney specializing in serious felony and capital cases. The team was appointed by Utah County after a waiver hearing with costs covered by taxpayers, estimated in the hundreds of thousands for the defense alone. They've been active in pretrial motions, including challenges to prosecutors' evidence sealing and the death penalty pursuit. No prominent public figures, organizations, or supporters are known to be actively defending Robinson in the media or court beyond his legal team.
This whole thing's confusing. I'm just going to shout out Honey Badger. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat. He's asking, and this is Honey Badger with the penis, by the way, not the one with the vagina. Is anyone surprised we didn't see a false flag this weekend? Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah. Is it just me? Also, fuck EK and the demons that took over the organization known as TPUSA.
Amen. I believe she's a psychopath.
Yeah, I think she was Charlie's handler, but that might be for another day. But what better day than today? Did you see that AI video of Erika Kirk making out with that black dude in a restaurant?
No.
I don't know if it was AI. I didn't run it through my AI detector.
I'm sure that was not
real.
I
bet it was too. Still made my jaw drop. Should we get into the conspiratorial side?
Yeah, I want to play this one clip first.
Play whatever you want.
Holy shit.
Yeah, she plugged. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I wasn't even a big fan of Charlie Kirk. I thought he was a little milquetoast.
I wasn't a fan of him either. He refused to debate Nick Fuentes. He was vanilla. I was very critical of TPUSA. It just seemed like culty, pseudo-religious, kind of like the exploitation of Christianity for the sake of a political end to me. I'm not saying that that's what it really was, but that's the way I felt about it. And Charlie Kirk, notoriously refused to debate Nick Fuentes. He used the excuse that he doesn't debate people who don't have goodwill, despite the fact that he went from campus to campus and debated anybody that would walk up to the microphone. Right? You can't vet those people for whether they have goodwill or their good intentions. So I was very critical of him for that. I'm very critical of... Sorry about that. Rex Jones is calling me. Sorry, I got a phone call. Very critical of just the general, just seemingly closet homosexuality associated with TPUSA. And it's not just TPUSA. It's a kind of a rampant problem. Like the Republican Party in the United States of America has a closeted homosexual...
They're all on Grindr.
...pandemic akin to the Catholic Church's historical problem with the closeted pedophilia. I mean, it's just so... The establishment Republican Party is just so fucking gay. And I don't even really care that they're gay. It's bothersome to me that they hide it because it's like, all right, what else are you hiding? And if you're willing to lie about who you are on that fundamental level, if you're willing to live a double life, then in what other scenarios would you be willing to live a double life for? I mean, if you're willing to hide your own sexuality for the sake of protecting your reputation for political gains, and does that mean that you're willing to sell out your vote to lobbyists to give you a certain amount of money? I just can't trust somebody who isn't overwhelmingly themselves, unabashedly, unashamedly themselves.
Well, it's a liability.
Say
you
what
could
you
be
will,
blackmailed.
Yeah, say what you will about Peter Thiel. I mean, obviously, Peter Thiel sued Gawker because they outed him as a homosexual. He was trying to hide it. But there's
he gave an interview where he was like, no holds barred gay fun.
Yeah, I know, but that was after he was outed. Okay. He sued and made Gawker go bankrupt because they proved that he was gay.
Did you really have to even prove it? Because he's a gay reptile.
It happened a long time ago. Everybody's known he's gay for like 10 years. But I believe he spoke at CPAC in either 2016 or 2014 or 2012. I don't know which year it was. He was somebody who was deeply involved in the Republican establishment as a closeted homosexual. And then when it came out, he made Gawker go bankrupt. I mean, he just went full warpath. And I just don't like people getting involved and gaining political power in the United States who aren't transparent about who they are. Whether it's their sexuality, whether it's their religious persuasions, whether it's who their funders are, whether it's their background. Dude, like if you got skeletons, man, just air them out.
Just become Skeletor, dude.
Just air them out. And so anyway, I perceive that TPUSA was engaged in that level of kind of just bullshit. You know, it's like when you go to a church in the South and everybody acts like they're all holy and they love Jesus so much, and then all those gals go out the next weekend and they just get smashed by some random dude. And
yeah,
they go to
Broadway
church.
Street.
Yeah, it's just that BS kind of pseudo-religious thing. And I'm not somebody who's incredibly pious. I try my best not to sin. I'm just as bad as the next guy. But at least I'm honest about it. I'm not pretending that I'm this righteous person and using that in order to get funding and support for podcast or political stuff. And so I perceive that TPUSA was superficial. That was my problem with it, and that was kind of my antagonism toward Charlie. Charlie was somebody who deeply resented InfoWars. I know that for a fact. Alex says that he'd spoken with Charlie recently and that they were friendly. That's probably true. Alex doesn't lie.
He did have Alex on at the political action committees.
And Alex doesn't lie. So if Alex says it, it's true. But I know that his kind of historical sentiment toward InfoWars was antagonism. I'm not going to reveal my source, but I have a very reliable, very famous source who told me that. And I believe him. So
maybe that was when Charlie was starting to turn.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, he's been in the field a long time. Positions and opinions change. But that being said, that was my issue, and that's my issue with Turning Point now. Frankly, I think that we need to go to war with Turning Point USA. I think we need to take the party back. I think we need to go to war with Erika Kirk. In fact, I think I'm going to write a book.
More like Erika Jerk.
Yeah, I think I'm going to write a book called The Real Erika Kirk. I'm going to get to the bottom of this shit because this is not adding up. Candace is basically the only one doing sophisticated and substantial work on this.
Our black warrior.
I want to take that torch and I want to double down and I want to go insane on Erika Kirk and TPUSA because we cannot allow the neoconservatives to hijack that organization and use it to continue to abuse the people of the United States of America and subvert the votes of the right here in this country.
Dude, all I know is I've castrated over 30 hogs by hand. So I've seen some disturbing shit. And seeing that video of Charlie getting murdered, that was like, dude, that was one of the most disturbing clips I've seen online.
The only other thing I've ever seen that was more disturbing than that was I did in college at one point, I don't even know how, come across an Al-Qaeda video where they used a kitchen knife to cut someone's head off.
Yeah, that was a snuff film, dude.
Yeah, I saw that, and the way he screamed was just, it was the most...
Was that Daniel Pearl you're talking about?
I don't remember.
The journalist?
I think so. I don't remember.
Oh, man.
But he squealed like a fucking
Yeah, that's
pig.
Daniel Pearl.
And I saw that video. I don't even know if it was legal for me to see it. I don't know
Faces of Death.
I don't know what side I was on, how I came across it, but I found it. And Charlie Kirk's was the next most intense or traumatizing thing to watch.
Dude, that was, and then like I was telling you earlier, I didn't really feel any sort of way towards Kirk, and I just felt like in the week after that, like second, third, fourth day after, I was like, I felt like we lost something. Like we genuinely really lost something.
And everybody misses them, and we did lose something. But here's the thing. You have to admit that if he picked someone like Erika Kirk to be his wife, there was something wrong with his judgment.
Oh, she's an actor, bro. She's very deceptive. She's a country music sensation. I don't know. Dude, she's actor, philanthropist, orphaneer, parents in basically the military industrial complex. Her mom was heavily involved in EMP defense technologies. Like, this whole thing screams plant. I know you and me go back and forth whether you think she's being misguided and like being taken along for the ride and taken advantage of. I legitimately think she is a handler.
Out of nowhere, without any announcement, shut down that nonprofit that she ran that was responsible for the Romanian orphans.
Yeah, bro. Who's running orphanages out of Romania after you're running for, what was it, Miss Arizona?
If you're a pageant girl, you're supposed to take on a project.
Yeah, bring the African kids water.
You're supposed to do something, and I think she started it. So I think the reason she started that nonprofit, if it wasn't military industrial complex or human trafficking, I think the reason was probably just so that she could use it to win pageants.
Well, I'm going to use this time to shout out Mr. C, USA Patriot. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, most of our politics are fake and gay. If you look closely, it's been that way for years. Transparency is paramount for public trust, which is why we use this Achilles heel that TPUSA and the FBI have created for themselves. If you want to fill this power vacuum of authority and misdirect and not give us transparency, we're going to absolutely fuck you, dude. Let the conspiracy theories run wild. Fuck it. Should we take this time to go into my Candace clip?
Sure.
Clip 102. That's Bill Gates.
I don't know why Bill Gates. I just didn't click. Hold on.
That's okay.
This was the biggest lie that Erika told me. Why is the head of audiovisual here? He doesn't come on campus events. This is new. And then I see that he's taking the camera down. He was the first person that made me realize something was very wrong because he was very nervous on the phone. I came up with a million excuses why I couldn't see the back footage. The first thing I thought that was so strange was there was no blood. Erika peeled off from Charlie's actual funeral and she called the surgeon with Andrew Colvett on the phone. The story that Andrew would then write, people want to know why there was no blood. The surgeon says that it was a miracle. Normally it would have taken down a moose. I mean, total slop for the masses. When I asked Erika about this, why did Andrew send this tweet? She said to me, he went rogue. I said, the surgeon spoke to Andrew without your permission? And she said, yeah. So the surgeon to the highest profile assassination since JFK violated HIPAA, went rogue, spoke to some random PR guy he doesn't know, who also went rogue. And then at the conclusion of this conversation, Andrew tweeted something without your permission and went rogue again. And she said, yeah.
Another very interesting fact.
And
right?
she goes on to say in that interview, which I listened to twice, by the way. And look, we're trying to promote our own network on our own show, but you got to go to Shawn Ryan's channel and listen to the Candace interview. She has a reliable source, implicitly former TPUSA, who says that Erika was on that call with the surgeon, with Andrew, and Erika was trying to tease that explanation out of the surgeon. So Erika lied to Candace about the Andrew thing going rogue, and she was actually involved, and she was behind that narrative.
Well, even Colvett got caught lying earlier because Candace had the receipts with the text, remember? Then Colvett had to admit, all right, maybe I got my story wrong. Maybe I told a white lie. Bro, they're all lying. They're all sitting there on his old podcast. Just in, Erika's over there dancing around in fucking glitter pants with pyrotechnics. This whole thing makes my freaking brain rattle, man.
Well, it's just like the Onion taking over InfoWars. The Onion, I mean, there was an assassination of Alex Jones. There was a character assassination. They deplatformed him everywhere, and they totally redefined him in the media without allowing him a platform to defend himself. So they killed Alex Jones, and they built up this straw man that they called Alex Jones, and they neutered any opposition to burn down the straw man, right? So they killed Alex Jones, they bankrupted him, and then the Onion is taking over InfoWars. They literally, not figuratively, but literally killed Charlie Kirk, and now some nefarious force is taking over TPUSA and Charlie Kirk's platforms. I mean, the fact that other people host the Charlie Kirk show posthumously, they've stolen his identity. It would be like if I launched the Martin Luther King show and claimed that everything that I said is what Martin Luther King would have said. How fucked up is that?
I would watch it.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, that's a radical example, but imagine, for example,
That was really.
let's do a better example.
Luther
Who's that?
King.
Who's that famous reverend in New York, the black guy, lost all the
Jesse,
weight. Lost all the weight. You know what I mean? He's got the crazy mullet. He used to be really fat.
Al Sharpton?
Yeah, imagine if Al Sharpton started a podcast called The Martin Luther King Show, where all he did was claim that this is what Martin Luther King would have wanted me to do and wanted me to say.
I have Ozempic.
Yeah, it's like bullshit. You can't just do that. Or if Alex Jones, God forbid, if something happened to him and he was no longer on air or broadcasting, and I just started a show called The Alex Jones Show, and I claimed, because I knew Alex so well, that everything I said and did is what he would be saying or would be doing if he were still with us or still on air. That is fucked up. And they're doing it because they just love the revenue. He's got a massive X account. He's got a massive following on YouTube and Rumble. And we're just going to hijack his brand and his name and his identity. And we're going to plaster it all over the place. And we're going to totally warp and manipulate his identity. We're going to intentionally deceive the public as to the nature of his political perspectives. And then we're just going to transform Charlie Kirk into whatever we need him to be for whatever our objective is. And what isn't clear to me now is whether or not TPUSA is intentionally sabotaging itself or inadvertently through its abundance of incompetence sabotaging itself. Because it seems to me that the powers that be, whether in our own deep state, Israel, whatever, the political establishment, have every incentive imaginable to want to dissolve and weaken and undermine the strength and integrity and political pull and influence of TPUSA. And it seems like they're intentionally, slowly unraveling and just imposing this entropy on the institution so they can undermine and just eradicate it as a political player in a game that they want to have a monopoly of all the pieces on. And I'm not sure if Erika Kirk is aware of this or if she's just being taken advantage of by handlers, but she is certainly, regardless of whether she knows what she's doing, a key piece in the game to intentionally bring down TPUSA.
Oh, I have a chart. Donations going down. Conspiracy theories going up. And that's the future of TPUSA. Gay. All right. Should we hit some other news
let's
items
do
of the day?
no, let's stay on this track. What about
All right.
103 here? We didn't just play 103, did we?
No, we played 102.
All right. You got to keep in mind, dude, the nature of handlers. In a situation in which you have a sophisticated and good handler, you have no idea that you're being handled. This is someone that you trust. The relationship is developed over an extended period of time, right? So the people that surround Erika Kirk are people that she's probably known for the last 8 years, ever since she was involved with Charlie. People that she's come to trust, who she's had social interactions with for the years leading up to Charlie's death. But they could all very well be handlers. It's like with InfoWars, Comey, within 90 days of becoming the director of the FBI under the Obama administration, in I believe December of 2013, put InfoWars under a Type 3 FBI assessment, which is a human intelligence gathering assessment. They classified InfoWars as an extremist, white, racially motivated organization. They use that to legally gather intelligence on InfoWars. Now, the information that's gathered under a Type 3 assessment box cannot be used in the court of law. It's not the same thing as like a warrant to gather evidence, but it can be used in order to intimidate, threaten, or gain witnesses to testify in the event of a case in the future. So what they can do under a Type 3 assessment is monitor financial transactions. They can publicly follow you or members of your organization and document where you are when. And they can legally send in undercover agents to interact with you or work for you.
Undercover brother.
Mm-hmm. And I believe, I'm not going to say any names, and it's probably not the case anymore, certainly before my time, but I believe that there were people behind the scenes, nobody that the public would know, but people behind the scenes that were likely not acting in good faith.
Like former employees?
Yeah. And so I'm not going to say anything else. And Alex was never compromised, and the integrity of his show was maintained, but I could just tell that some things were going on that didn't really make sense, that were intentionally designed to undermine the efficacy of InfoWars. And I fought really hard against him, and Alex fought hard against him, and I think he overcame. But my point is, they put people in that you hire, that you trust, and they do a good job 98% of the time. And they develop that trust. And then once the trust is established, that's when they start handling, and you don't even know that you're being handled because they don't do it in an overt way. They don't do it in an obnoxious, obvious way. It would be like if 5 years from now, I convinced you to invest in this new fund that I created, right?
I'm in.
Right? And it was just a scam. But like, I established this relationship with you. I worked it for 5 years. We did a show together for 5 years, and it was all a long con in order to undermine you and exploit you 5 years from now in 2030 or 2031. Like, that's how they do it. They don't just send somebody in who's like, hey, don't you do that. Otherwise, with Ye, it was overt and obvious when his personal trainer is threatening to send him to La La Land and medicate him so he can't enjoy time with his kids. I mean, that's a sloppy handler, but a good handler will actually win you over and push you and advise you and manipulate you, kind of like Wormtongue in The Lord of the Rings with King Theoden, where he just slowly got to that point where he was controlling the entire Theoden administration, for lack of a better term. He didn't, he didn't just show up one day and all of a sudden Theoden looked old and decrepit and was totally incompetent and incapable of leading Rohan. That was something that he developed over a very extended period of time. And then by the end, it was egregious and obvious to everyone else, but it was too late for the person being handled. I think that it's most likely that what we're seeing with Erika Kirk is somebody who was propped up and positioned, perhaps even without her knowing, to be inserted into Charlie's life and orbit, and that she's being handled right now by people who know what they're doing, despite the fact that she may not know what she's doing. I think she thinks that she is doing a great job and has the best interests in mind for TPUSA and is capable, as Charlie's wife, widow, of taking the mantle or the torch of the organization. And I believe everybody, not everybody, but I believe a substantial number of people around her are just controlling everything that she does, and she's not even aware that she's being controlled. She's just being advised poorly.
Bro, we're gonna talk more after the show. She's
you can talk on the show. Say it on the show.
They're all handlers. Most handlers have a vagina.
Some handlers don't know that they're handlers, dude.
Yeah, I completely agree. That don't mean you're not a handler. That just means you're a dumb handler. You don't even know you're a handler with a handler.
I'm just telling you, man, these pageant girls, they have a specific personality. And most of them have borderline personality disorder because the reason they're pageant girls is because their mothers wanted them to be pageant girls. So their mothers exploited them from youth in order to feel good about themselves. And if you look at the research and the psychological studies, a major cause of borderline personality disorder among women is a traumatic relationship or a semi-abusive relationship with their mother. So you talk about, girls with daddy issues being crazy in bed. Of course, it's true. But the girls with mommy issues are the ones that me too your ass. They falsely accuse you of sexual assault. They're involved in the pageants. They start up nonprofits to help children, not because they care about children, but because they want to say at the next competition that they are helping children. They pretend to be Christian despite the fact that there's tremendous amount of evidence that they had a hedonistic lifestyle in years past in order to get in bed with a Charlie Kirk because they are so superficial that they want to be associated with someone who's perceived to be a good Christian man who happens to have a lot of money and a lot of political power. And they take advantage of people like that because Charlie Kirk was genuinely naive. And I do believe that he was a virgin until he married Erika Kirk because of his faith. And I don't know if he was gay or not. You could speculate as to that, but I do think that he was a virgin until he got married, and I think he believed everything that he said. And these pageant BPD lunatic women who have the audacity to lie about the nicknames that they used for their own grandparents. I mean, this is something that was uncovered under the Bride of Charlie series that Candace Owens did. This is the type of just psychopathic, sociopathic behavior that regardless of whether she knows what she's doing, it's very easy to manipulate a person like that. Jordan Peterson famously said, if you're afraid of what a strong man in leadership will do, just imagine what a weak man will do. If you're afraid of what Charlie Kirk will do at the helm of TPUSA as a strong man, just imagine what an Erika Kirk will do as a weak woman. And look, I'm not trying to abuse or just knock or criticize or be, hurtful or hateful toward Erika Kirk. I feel bad about what happened to her husband, and I don't think that she was involved in his death. Maybe she was. I don't think so. I'm not trying to say that she's this evil, corrupt, terrible person. I'm not trying to abuse her online for clicks or attention or clout. I don't give a shit about that. The reason I have followers is because I don't care about getting followers. The more authentic you are, the better that you do in the social media landscape and in the podcasting landscape. But I do believe that she is a psychopath, and I do believe that Candace is correct when she says that. I think she knows that, and I believe that she's got borderline personality disorder, and I believe that she's like so many other pageant girls. Not all of them are like this, but disproportionately. I mean, it's just insane what percentage of them have severe mental illness. Do you know how sophisticated
this gets? Barack Obama, and this is my opinion, but I think there's a lot of evidence to back it up, his first handler was his own mother. So some of these intelligence assets will give birth to a child with the express purpose to implant them in because they're an intelligence asset and they know they have the in. So if you know anything about Obama's mother's past, she's always been dating these communist dictators. She was in the pornography industry, and they planted her on these people.
What's that night show host that's got the English accent and the spectacles? Very sarcastic leftist guy.
He's funny. He's like he moonlights as a comedian.
He's like Stephen Colbert, only he's a left.
He's the British
Yeah.
Steven. I don't
What's
remember
his fucking,
his
somebody
name.
in chat say his name on the YouTube chat. Maybe we can find it. Oliver?
Oliver. Yeah, Oliver.
Was Oliver his last name?
Oliver. Someone's saying Graham.
No, I don't think so.
Graham something.
Let me see if I can find
Oliver. No, not Oliver Stone. It's But anyways, what was your point about him?
Well, I want to play a clip of him covering pageants.
Oh, I want to say one more thing
Go
too.
ahead.
So you remember when Kanye was accusing Kim of being a handler too, and like people will attach women. Obviously, it's the most obvious way.
Kardashian?
Yeah.
John Oliver.
You remember? Yeah, John Oliver. Remember the second girl he was dating after Kim?
The one that he made wear the translucent dress?
Yes.
Yeah, but he knew she was a handler.
No, that's what they were saying. That
That's
he
why
was
he made her- he
embarrassing the
yeah.
shit out of her.
Yeah.
I love Kanye, man.
I love Kanye too.
I want to take this time to shout out Colby. Thank you so much for the super chats. We really appreciate you. She sent hearts and eagles and champagne glasses. Thank you so much. You're going to play the
I'm going to find it. Keep talking.
John Oliver?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was what the main thing I was talking about. Like, Kanye's such a shrewd bastard, dude. He's just parading her around naked all the time. And she probably has to stay with the assignment.
Yeah.
So she just has to
I was
endure
watching Donnie
being
Brasco
humiliated.
the other night. Have you ever seen Donnie Brasco with Johnny Depp?
Yeah, the undercover detective that infiltrated the New York mob.
Yeah, I was watching that, and you know, just to see what he had to go through and had to do in order to maintain his cover. If you're undercover with Ye, man,
Couldn't be that bad. What did he have to do? Kill a couple people and
he had to beat the shit out of innocent people, stuff like that. Get involved in robberies and stuff like that.
I mean,
I'm
you
gonna
could
find
do-
this. I'm gonna find this.
At least he didn't have to get pegged. Imagine having me go that undercover.
Did you ever
dude.
watch The Boys? On
Yeah,
Prime? It's
yeah,
good.
of course. What do you think? I'm a
I
nerd?
actually, you know, it's kind of like I can see how people say it's going woke, but I think they're making fun of woke people more than they are.
Well, it's
making fun of
social
Trump.
commentary. It's always been that. Yeah. I think the last season wrapped up, right?
Yeah, it's
And
over.
then you said
So
Homelander
the clips
was like,
I saw of Homelander
"I'll
are
suck
why
your
I'm
dick."
watching the show because that was just wild.
I'll suck your dick, please. And it's
Yeah.
like he's like, did they end up making him a Trumpian?
That's what's said, but it's so exaggerated that you couldn't even really say. Keep going, buddy. I got to find this clip.
Well, I mean, is the clip that? What is the clip about that you're about?
It's
to
about
play?
pageants.
What? They all have BPD. They like to run orphanages. A lot of them, their parents are psychopathic.
I have to
Wealth
drive. I have to
extractors.
drive the point home. I have to.
I'm glad we did this episode, but for a long stretch of time, I did get so sick of talking about
I know.
TPUSA and
I know, but
Kirk.
it's so relevant.
Well,
man.
it's relevant today. It's today's.
Yeah, I'll try
trending-
to. You know, I don't want this show to be like a one theme show, generally speaking. But we've got Tyler Robinson on trial for a
No,
crime
of
that he
course
didn't
we have
commit.
to cover today.
It's
Today
a
would be
massive
the day.
psyop.
We got Robinson over there with no jawline, looking like he chewed on gummy bears his whole life.
I can't believe I found the clip on YouTube. I'm literally searching the exact title in Darvis, and Darvis isn't finding it.
Well, Darvis is an H-1B visa, so we can't rely on him all the time.
I'm gonna fix Darvis.
It's all right.
It's okay. Let's see if it loads this time. And if
Use
not,
your
we'll move on.
Fable. Use your Fable 5 trial. It's going till tomorrow or a
No,
couple
dude,
hours.
it burns too many credits. I can't use that shit.
Yeah, but it's way smarter and better for what it builds. It'll build you. We could find out who killed Charlie Kirk with Fable 5 pretty much, dude. We could solve the whole mystery. Humble
I
Hashmaker,
know
thank
why.
you
It's 'cause
so
the clip's
much.
15 minutes, and Darvis only finds clips that are up to 5 minutes long. That's why.
Well, I'm going to take this time to Humble Hashmaker. I'm sure he makes some of the best hash, guys. Thank you for the super chat. He says, glad to see you guys streaming. Yeah, we went on a little hiatus for the holiday weekend.
Yeah, I was out of town last week, so I missed Wednesday and Friday's show. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
We'll
dude.
make up for
Everyone's
it though.
gotta- Yeah.
All right, I found a 1 minute 21 second version. Then I'll move on.
John Oliver hilariously blasts the Miss America pageant over scholarship claims on last week tonight. Watch the video. Here comes John Oliver. On a Sunday, September 21st episode
God,
of
play the fucking
HBO's
clip.
Last Week Tonight with John Oliver.
Let's
This
move on.
sucked.
I give up, dude. I give up.
This funeral we're going to go to is more fun than that freaking clip.
Yeah, let's do the funeral.
All right. This is going to give a little context, so we don't have to play every clip here, but we should play two. 104 million to 10 Khamenei's funeral.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why it's important.
High-stakes diplomatic week lies ahead as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly set to visit the White House following the NATO summit.
Meanwhile, U.S.-Iran talks remain on pause as anti-American chants fill a funeral for Tehran's former supreme leader Ali Khamenei. Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yanks joins us live from Tel Aviv with all the details. Hi, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Hundreds of thousands of Iranians gathered in the streets of Tehran today and over the weekend as they mourn the loss of the late supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei. This entire event will last until July 9th. It's included a variety of processions and visits by foreign delegations from countries like Saudi Arabia and Oman. Many of the attendees chanted "Death to America" as they demonstrated, but there was no appearance from Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. With the ceasefire ongoing, there are questions about this 60-day window and whether Iran will make serious concessions to avoid a return to war. The Israelis are reportedly preparing a unilateral strike package against Iran, as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke Sunday on Fox News about the relationship he has with President Trump.
So this is very, very important because we know Iran has sleeper agents and they've been infiltrating America probably since the early 2000s. I would say even later because we overthrew Mossadegh, and installed the Shah. That was in the 50s.
You mean even earlier? Yeah.
So they've been infiltrating this country for a long time. They have terror cells everywhere. If they were to go active, this would be the signal. And this funeral procession was so dangerous that...
What do you mean would be the signal? Like a funeral would be the signal?
Yes, they don't. So you wouldn't want to interrupt this funeral procession because this is a unifying moment in the Islamic world.
Yes.
You heard Oman.
Just like when Trump killed that one general.
Exactly.
What was his name?
Soleimani.
Yes.
So this would be the signal to go after this. This is the maximum danger time. We are seeing for the first time in modern history Sunni Muslims making overtures and reaching out to Shia because Khamenei was the Ayatollah. He was essentially the Pope of Shia Islam. Shia Islam and Sunni Islam have been bitter rivals.
Explain which is which. Do you know?
One
of them's the hardcore one, right?
They both fund radicalism. They are both hardcore, but there's disagreements on who the rightful heir to Muhammad should have been, because there was a split in Muhammad's family line.
Okay.
So some went and formed Shia Islam, some went with Sunni, which was which is the predominant form. The big unifying force in this is Israel's ongoing war. It's uniting the whole Muslim world right now.
It's like when we got united with the communists against the fascists.
It's like
in World
after
War II.
9/11,
we
bro.
weren't necessarily friends with Russia, but it was convenient for us to ally.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's even with the Chinese, World War II is a unifying force for us to, unite with communism, essentially, to defeat fascism.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing right now, from this point on, Israel's already developing a strike package. This funeral procession was so freaking dangerous that Mojtaba didn't show up for it. But Khamenei's 3 other sons did show up for this. And the main thing to watch here is who attended this funeral. You have Oman, you have Saudi Arabia, you have a lot of the Sunni Islamic world, and
Anybody
Russia.
from Qatar?
I don't know about Qatar, but if we go down the procession of the line and clips, we should play clip 106, and then we can play clip 105 after that if we want, so you can get some context.
Russia is paying tribute to Iran's late supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, as senior officials arrive in Tehran for the state funeral. Vladimir Putin has thrown his support behind Iran, sending one of Russia's most influential figures to attend Ali Khamenei's funeral. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has joined world leaders in Tehran to pay his final respects to Ali Khamenei. Dmitry Medvedev attended the state funeral of Iran's slain supreme leader, marking Russia's presence at one of the country's most significant ceremonies. The former Russian president represented Vladimir Putin during the high-profile funeral held in Tehran on July 3rd. Medvedev conveyed Russia's deepest condolences, describing Ali Khamenei's death as the martyrdom of a leader revered by the Iranian people. Dmitry Medvedev said, and I quote, "On behalf of the leadership and people of Russia, I extend our deepest condolences over the martyrdom of Iran's supreme leader, Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei."
Russia was willing to risk sending the second most powerful man in all of Russia, the successor to Putin, because he was the premier at one point, and then Vladimir, like they have different term limits, was eligible to run again, and he did. So this is the second most powerful man in all of Russia, Putin's successor, willing to risk showing up in person. You have Saudi Arabia.
It's such an opportunity.
Exactly. Well, you know what Israel does to diplomats. This was very dangerous to attend this funeral.
It might have solely been the reason that there wasn't an attack on the funeral.
Maybe.
You know, the Russians are there. Medvedev's there. We can't do it now.
Like a mad dog, dude.
I know.
And we're in the maximum danger zone. I'm already under the impression we're going to see false flags anyways. But Israel's already preparing another strike package. We know that the MOU is stalling. If they strike again, it's the maximum danger zone for the United States. You're going to see all sorts of bridge collapses, people not waking up in condominium complexes because some weird janitor that's Iranian that's been a sleeper cell there is going to pour freaking chlorine in the vent. You're going to see chemical attacks. You're going to see all hell break loose if they strike Iran again. If it's not already going to happen, because millions of people, they're trying to downplay and whitewash this in Western media. Hundreds of thousands, maybe a million. From what I've seen and I've been reading in foreign media, 1.5 to 2 million people. This has been like a 9-day funeral procession. And this is, they have their supporters, the Islamic Party, IRGC regime that's in charge. They're out in the streets full force. This regime's not going to fall. And this is the sentiment in the streets if we play clip 105. This is why I think we're in the maximum danger zone.
Thousands of mourners gather for Khamenei's funeral.
Thousands. Get real, dude.
With tears, prayers, and chants of revenge. Large crowds paid their final respects to the slain Iranian supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. We had a very bad feeling because we lost him, according to this woman there, because he was like our father. It is as if after him we have lost our dearest person. We came here to bid farewell to him, another man says, but we will certainly avenge his blood. Everyone here has come to avenge the blood of their supreme leader. Khamenei's body is lying in the state at the Grand Masala, ahead of his burial in his hometown of Mashhad next Thursday. Ceremonies will continue across Iran and Iraq over the coming days. The mass funeral processions are taking place more than 4 months after Khamenei was killed in a joint U.S. and Israeli strike. The funeral is being viewed as a major test of public support for Iran's current leadership, following the death of the country's longest-serving supreme leader.
Guys, they waited 4 months to do this funeral.
Well, they were getting the shit bombed out of them, so they had to wait till things eased up.
No, because at the maximum danger zone for Iran, when we were talking about bringing in Kurdish proxies, when they were trying to bring weapons in, you could have held this symbolic gesture, this unifying moment much earlier. They waited to absorb all the munitions, all of the economic pain that the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, and they waited 4 freaking months. They kept the pieces of his body on ice to reassemble them.
Yeah.
This timing is strategic.
And they come out now and they could just show that all of Iran hates the United States of America, and there's no hope whatsoever for a CIA-backed overthrow of the establishment.
And not only that, but after the Gulf Coast nations have felt the economic pain, the desalination plants got hit, the data centers got hit, all this investment burned up in smoke, and Israel was shown to be mask off the real villain in all of this. This was so strategically timed.
Did you see those clips I sent you last week of J.D. Vance at the peace negotiations with Iran and other diplomats? And Trump posted that tweet or that Truth Social post, and Iran just fucking left.
Yeah. They wouldn't even shake the hands of Witkoff and Kushner. I wouldn't shake their hands either. You know what I mean? But the Iranians are extremely shrewd, guys. Like the strategic timing of this funeral, waiting 4 months after the U.S. gave so many blows to Iran, shutting down the Hormuz Strait, causing economic pain, allowing Israel to unveil itself. None of this is coincidence. This funeral alone is a signal, dude. It's bad, man. You think we can win the war for a 43rd time? I don't know. Now let's, do you have a clip in mind, or should we move on to our own Islamic problem here in the United States?
Let's transition to it.
All right. This is my favorite type of transition. Clip 108, Mamdani shades USA
In the
250.
shadow of America's 250th birthday.
Shout out to John Bound. Everybody should follow him on X.
That would make our founding fathers leap out of their graves. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani perched arrogantly backwards behind George Washington's historic desk at City Hall, delivered a so-called address on the eve of July 4th that wasn't a celebration of independence, but a venomous tirade against the very soul of this republic.
The irony is that the story of America has so often been written by those who were told by others with power and influence and wealth that they were anything but exceptional. The powerful have always known their answer. America, in their view, is an arena of supremacy, where only a select few are allowed freedom, where not all are created equal. America, if you ask them, becomes less the more people it welcomes. America, they will tell you, belongs only to those with the right accent or the right shade of skin. The rest of us, they insist, should be grateful for merely being allowed to visit. How small they are, how weak, how unoriginal.
Behind George Washington's fucking desk, bro. Spitting in the face of America, turning this into what should be a unifying, celebrating our 250th year of independence, and then turning this into racial strife, racial conflict. This dude makes me sick, and it's not even just the weird videos of him eating rice with his hands and then shaking people's hands after.
You gotta be fucking careful, though, because the neoconservatives are going to use the Trantifa. They're going to use the growth of Islam in the United States of America to try to intimidate the American people into voting for their Israel first candidates.
We're dealing with two simultaneous counter-revolutions to our revolution. These are counter-revolutionaries. The original revolution.
I'm not a fan or you defending Mamdani at all.
Yeah, I'm not getting caught up in the
I don't want Islam in the United States of America. Sorry, Big T, I love you. I don't want Marxism or critical theory in the United States of America.
But we don't want Zionism either.
But yeah, obviously the number one threat to the United States as it stands is not Islam or communism. It's a corrupt political uniparty establishment willing to totally sell out to the interests of Israel, and they're willing to allow terrorism to happen to the American people, assassinations to happen to the American people, if it means bolstering their political agenda to that effect, and they're willing to take our money and use it to fund genocide and war incessantly all over the world, wherever need be, in order to accomplish this agenda. So that, to me, is the greatest threat to national security. And though I'm very critical, I'm glad you pulled up these clips. I think it's relevant. Obviously, it's offensive that Mamdani's up there on George Washington's desk saying all this BS. Obviously, it's a tragedy that he won the election that he did win. Obviously, it's terrible that we have the Ilhan Omars and that we have the massive growth of this culture in the United States of America that refuses to assimilate with Western values. And I do believe that the leftists and the Islamists are collaborating to undermine Western civilization, but so is Israel. Israel is collaborating to undermine Christendom the world over, and they're using and weaponizing Islam in order to do that through the refugees, through the asylum, through the invasion that's taking place in Europe, through what's happening here in the United States of America. And the Mark Levins and the Lindsey Grahams and the Ted Cruzes are going to use the examples of people like Ilhan Omar and Mamdani in order to try to intimidate and convince the American people to abandon their demand that the Republican Party be truly America first, because they're going to say, look, you might not like the fact that we're neoconservatives and we love Israel and we love Zionism, but if you don't vote for us, then we're going to be run by radical Islamic Marxists. That's what they're going to say, and it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit.
How do you fight a war? You must first identify the enemies, correct?
Correct.
It's not going to come from one angle. This is a dialectic that was set up on purpose.
And if you beat it, then fuck you too!
This is what we have to recognize. It's not going to be a one-punch knockout of America. It's going to be a 2 to 3 punch combo. You see the technocratic side, the fascistic side, that's the global technocracy overlay siding with Zionism. On the other side, you see the managerial class, the Islamic radicals siding with the communists. the DSA, like shout out to Mr. C, USA Patriot. Thank you for the super chat. He's saying what I'm saying. They're letting the DSA, Democratic Socialists, take a foothold to use them as a tool to push an authoritarian neocon crackdown from the right. It's exactly what I'm saying now. We can't address just one or the other. It's a left-right hook. It's a two-punch combo. If you're a boxer reading one punch, you're going to get hit with the other punch. So we have to address both of them and let our viewers know the road is narrow. The only way forward is America first, America only. We're not going to side with the technocracy. That's the fascistic side. We're not going to side with the Islamic communists. That's the soft term democratic socialists. That's the Marxist wing.
But if we let the Islamic Marxists, and I don't even believe that they are Islamic Marxists, but let's just use that term. I hate the term because Mark Levin loves it. But if we let Islamists and Marxists conspire or collaborate or benefit from the common foe that they have, which is Western civilization, if we let them win in 2028, it will be terrible. And innocent people on the right will be arrested and silenced, and censorship will be rampant, and the economy will collapse. It's true that 2028 to 2032 will be terrible under the leadership and political power of the leftists who are sympathetic to the Islamists, 100%. But if we allow the neoconservatives to win in 2028, we continue this Israel first trajectory, and we ensure that it's never successfully undermined, at least not for the near future, right? So what I am suggesting that we do as the American people is accept the short-term pain of our worst enemies being in power from 2028 to 2032, because what that will do will make everyone in America unite, similar to this Khamenei funeral that you've seen, where all the Muslims are uniting together,
yes.
Shia, Sunni, whatever, because of what we've done to them, the suffering that we've imposed upon them, right? This 2028 to 2032, leftists, Marxist, Islamist, political establishment being in power for those 4 years will unite the rest of America against the left and simultaneously force the grand old party to abandon neoconservatism if they lose because of neoconservatism in 2028. And what we'll have in 2032 is a genuinely America first, hard right conservative party that can come in, reverse, correct. We saw the same thing, and I'm not a Nazi. I'm not pro the National Socialist Party. I'm not pro Hitler's policies. The Holocaust aside, I'm appalled by some of the decisions that were made. But there is something to be learned from what happened politically when the Nazi Party came to power. And what happened was there was the Great Depression in 29. There was massive economic pressure, massive economic stress, massive suffering in Germany, not just from 1917 to 1932 or 1933, but especially from 1929 to 1932, 1933. And because of that suffering, the Germans were able to successfully basically replace their government legally. You can argue the Reichstag was a false flag and that was illegal, but on paper it was legal what happened. And they totally replaced their currency, their monetary system. They totally replaced their government, and they did so without a domestic revolution or a domestic civil war. I mean, what happened in 1933 in Germany is one of the most astounding historical examples of a complete transformation of a nation, its government, its infrastructure, its systems, without without domestic violence in a short period of time. And it's proof that we can have a radical disruption peacefully here in the United States of America. But it only happened because the Germans established cultural consensus and agreement. Regardless of whether they were right or wrong, there was massive consensus as to who was responsible for the suffering in Germany. And because of that massive consensus, they were able to peacefully replace their government and then do terrible things over the next 10 years, whatever. But I am thinking that here in the United States of America, if the leftists win in 2028, if the Islamists win in 2028, we see terrible social policy. We see economic collapse, which is going to happen inevitably regardless of who comes into power. But that will all be attributed to Marxism, to leftism. The GOP will be forced to abandon neoconservatism because we'll have proven in 2028 that the neoconservative sentiment is not going to win elections anymore in the United States of America. And it will give us the opportunity to reclaim the party and the nation in 2032 in the same way that the Germans reclaimed their nation in 1932. My hope and prayer is that when we reclaim the nation, unlike the Germans 100 years ago, we establish a just alternative instead of a fascist or a dictatorial one, right? I'm hoping that the America First movement is pragmatic, uncompromising, just, and reasonable, and that it's really a rebirth of America in its original, essential, initial principles and values in a way that cannot be politically compromised in the near future. So what I'm saying is we have to let the left win in 2028 because the only way we can fix the right is if the American people see what the left wants to do intensely for 4 years and simultaneously eradicate or erode or destroy all of the power of the neoconservative right within the GOP.
Don't you see what happens after that, though? We don't even have to accept. That's the road we're going down. We don't even have to let them win. The pendulum swinging that way. So I can extrapolate past that. 2028 comes. They elect these DSA Marxists, hardcore Islamist Marxists. They come in. They tax the rich, eat the rich, class warfare. Yep. Everything degrades. People's standard of living get lower. Get back into power again. After
but you
that.
don't understand. If every time the pendulum swings, the balance is weakened, right? So let me use an example. You know the famous submarine, the Titan, that went down to see the Titanic and it imploded. You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah.
This guy made this carbon fiber submarine called the Titan, and it went down repeatedly to see the Titanic. He was very proud of it. He was egotistical. He was insistent that it was a superior design for a submarine. And every time that the Titan went down to the Titanic, the integrity of the carbon fiber material was worsened and weakened, right? To the point where it imploded, was not salvageable. Everybody died. Never do that again, right? What I'm saying is that every time the pendulum swings politically in the United States,
it breaks our country a little more.
Yes, it erodes the system. And rather than, like in physics, where every time a pendulum swings, it swings a little bit less until it's moderate. Politically, when a pendulum swings, every time it swings more radically.
Yes.
Right?
More inertia.
Yep, until it does like a full circle,
and then
right? And then it starts again, right? And it breaks. Or it starts again at a different algorithm, right? So what I'm trying to say is I think that the pendulum has two more swings. You're saying, I'm gathering from you, that if we win in 2030,
that's what I'm saying.
You're saying that if we win in 2032, though, if the right wins in 2032, that in 2036 the left will be even more radical and come to power. I don't think so.
Well, maybe not. It could be 4 to 8 years, so it could be not like 2032 to 2040, and by then we're the boomers.
Yeah, I think
it's gonna be super racist. I love it.
Yeah, but it's going to have so much consensus and power that it will eradicate the systemic corruption on a large enough scale that America will be right wing indefinitely. Not forever. Indefinitely doesn't mean the same thing as forever, but for the foreseeable future. I think it's got two more swings, brother.
Two more. I'm saying essentially what you're saying. We have two more swings, but don't you think it's odd along the biblical timeline? Would be there is no political solution to this. What did our founders say? This is an experiment.
Well, there was a political solution to the Weimar Republic.
Yeah, and then what happened to them after that?
I know. I understand. But the difference between what happened in 1932 or 1933 and what's going to happen here in 2032 or 2033 is that we have the context, the historical context of what happened in 1932, whereas when the Nazis came to power, they had no a precedent or context of what that would play out, how that would play out. I mean, if the Germans knew that by 1945 Berlin would collapse and be under the divided control of the United States of America and the Soviet Union, they never would have elected the Nazi Party to come into power. But they didn't know because there was no precedence. It was all new and innovative political structures and sentiment.
We're in the same situation today. This is an experiment.
But the difference is we're not going to elect a Nazi party here in the United States. We're not going to elect an American version of the Nazi party here in the United States because we have the context of seeing with that degree or with that approach to governance, how it plays out. We know as a species that it will lead 10 to 15 years to an inevitable and terrible demise of our nation. So we are going to have a never before seen version of right-wing political philosophy, beliefs, and sentiments in this country in 2032 that will come to power if we stay home in 2028.
All right.
And I'm hoping and praying that our version of the right, when it comes to power in 2032, is just and powerful and true, unlike the National Socialists in Germany. That's what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
It does 100% make sense.
I don't care if you agree with me or not. I just want you to understand.
Well, I'm trying to give you... So I'm going to do my favorite thing here. It's called game theory. All right? How long has partisan politics been around? Since the age of republics, essentially, correct? And some form of democratic or Republican form of government. There's always been two-party, and then now that we have three-party, four-party, five-party, six-party. This is what's going to happen. The reason I say there is no political solution to this is because this is all biblical, and I see the timeline stacking. Now,
you got to be careful about claiming it's biblical, though, because the future's uncertain and the end is always near. And even going back to the writings of Paul, the original Christians believed that the end was going to come in their lifetime.
Anyways,
and it never fucking happens.
This is my opinion. Let me give you my game. I'm game theorying this out.
I'm sorry, I'm being rude. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Everyone sees the Zionist control. We have 100 years of experience of communist government. You're saying we're not going to fall for fascism. The same patterns we're playing where all these freaking retards are falling for communism.
Yeah, but they're not falling for the same form of... This actually goes to my point. They're not falling for the same form of communism that they fell for 100 years ago. They're falling for the contemporary CCP version of communism, not the Mao version of communism. And I'm saying that we in America are going to fall for a neo version of fascism that is not the same as the Nazi version of fascism.
All right. Well, let me cook here, Steve.
Keep cooking.
The Zionists are going to be utterly destroyed. You see the Islamic world already uniting against them. I think Israel, just like the Bible foretold, is going to be invaded by Gog and Magog on all four sides, and Zionism is going to cease to exist. In that power vacuum where the last hundreds of years Zionists have been directing Islam like a Frankenstein and Dr. Frankenstein, what happened to Dr. Frankenstein? He was killed by his own creation. The Marxist Islamic-led communists are going to fill the power vacuum, and I actually believe Islam is one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. So you're going to see the demise of the American Republic.
It's the fastest growing religion. By 2050, it's supposed to have. There's supposed to be just as many Muslims as Christians.
Everything is lined up for this for the next 20 years. Yep. Israel is going to be utterly destroyed. The Zionist party and wing of the U.S. government is going to be utterly destroyed. America, as we know, it's going to be utterly destroyed. And then we're going to fall into a worldwide dictatorship that's a merger of Christianity, Judaism, nature worship, and Islam. And then you see the rise of the Antichrist. That's why I'm saying this is biblical, because you can see the formation of Israel's demise leading to America's demise, leading to a power vacuum that takes 30% of all Western economies and governments with it. And the power vacuum filling that is worldwide Islam, because that's the most powerful unifying force, because they're willing to become militant. They're willing to be zealots. They're willing to die for their religion and wear suicide vests. Christians don't do that because we're taught to turn the other cheek, give the benefit of the doubt, give the chance. And I'm talking about radical Islamists, because moderates are the biggest victims of radical Islam. They're not going to do what's needed to be done, like Pirates of the Caribbean type shit. So that's why I'm saying this is biblical. But if
radical Islam takes over in the Middle East, and the United States is simultaneously weakened to the point where we're no longer militarily involved in the Middle East, the common enemy of radical Muslims and moderate Muslims will evaporate. And when that happens, the moderate Muslims will
become radical.
No.
They'll be forced to.
They'll be opposed to the radicalism, because you have to keep in mind, it's just like black on black crime. Most Islamic terrorism is actually radical Muslims against moderate Muslims.
Yeah.
right? And the only reason we're seeing this massive unification between different sects of Muslims in the Middle East is because the United States, as a big bully, goes in and bombs the fuck out of everybody. And they're like, look, we're not necessarily as radical as you are about this stuff, but obviously we have a bigger problem to deal with. We should come together until the United States is undermined. Without the United States, I believe that Islam divides. I believe that it's just like what happened during the Reformation with the Catholic Church. There's one denomination, it's Lutherans, and then there's Methodists, and there's Presbyterians. Now there's like thousands of different Christian denominations. There was a massive, Christianity is still huge, on a macro composite scale, but I think most Christians are something other than Catholic now, right? So what I'm trying to say is we're going to see, without the presence of the United States militarily, massive theological and political division within Islam, I think, over the next 100 years, if the United States isn't involved. We keep them unified because we are the common enemy. Enemy of my enemy is my friend, just like you were saying. And if we seriously and truly leave the Middle East, Islam will eat itself, I believe.
I have to disagree. The only place you see moderate Islamic regimes are because they are Western aligned. In a power vacuum where the United States is no longer the sole military superpower.
Yeah, but the only place you see radical Islam are in places that hate the United States because of our involvement, our own terrorism.
The Western intelligence agencies created radical Islam. That's why I use the Dr. Frankenstein.
And so what I'm saying is, without Western intelligence agencies involved, radical Islam goes away.
No. It's opening Pandora's box. We created the Mujahideen. ISIS is a Western intelligence creation, but that doesn't mean it ceases to exist. That means it eats its creator and keeps metastasizing like a cancer. And I don't think moderate Islam, without the backing of the West, can survive against radical Islam. That's the problem. Because radical Islam fights no holds barred.
See, but I think the radical Islam will become the primary enemy of moderate Islam in the absence of the United States.
And then what does that do to moderate Islam? It radicalizes them to meet force with force.
No. It's like maybe you're right. But the moderate Islam will rise up against radical Islam because it will become a victim of radical Islam.
But it'll be defeated.
You have to understand, dude, the only reason people are radical Muslim, not the only reason, but the primary reason that radical Islam exists, Bak,
it's because they give you 4 biddies.
Because they force, it's fear and intimidation and force. They're not actually winning hearts and minds on a massive scale. I mean, there's some of that does occur. There are genuine believers, but a lot of the people that are involved in these terrorist organizations are involved because they were kidnapped or their parents were killed, or people remain complicit to what these terrorists want to do because they don't want to be killed. They don't want more than 10% or 20% of their crops being taken, similar to, like the mafia going by an Italian neighborhood and the baker and taking 10% of the, profit. But I really do believe that radical Islam is only empowered by our military industrial complex, our intelligence, and our antagonism in the region. And after we leave, normies over there are going to be like, fuck, man, these radicals, Al-Qaeda is like our primary problem, our primary enemy. And that's going to create schisms and militias and factions within Islam.
I'm not saying they're not going to infight. I'm saying to fight each other that furthers the radicalization process. We actually have a good case example.
Look at this, though. We're not involved at all in Africa militarily. Very little, right?
That's not true.
We have bases and we have infrastructure about African terrorism. These are very tribal people, very radical people.
That's not true.
Tons of warlords.
Al-Shabaab.
There's tons of warlords in Africa.
Darfur.
There's tons of warlords in Africa, right? And they commit terrorism against each other, but there's so much infighting and tribal warfare that they never really amass a substantial amount of unified power in order to be, a real global political player. Like Africa, other than its natural resources, is politically fairly irrelevant. Like it doesn't have any military force as a unified continent or country. It's not not really a nuclear power, other than the fact that it has so many uranium-enriched resources. I mean, Africa is basically, from a military superpower standpoint, irrelevant to the rest of the world. It's just like where Bill Gates goes to experiment. I'm saying that what the current situation dynamic in Africa is what Islam will become in the absence of the United States involvement in the region.
Let me give you one good counterexample.
Sure.
Okay? You are a moderate Muslim, like Big T, westernized.
Yeah.
You no longer have a place to flee to like the United States because it no longer exists in its former glory and power. You are forced to stay in your homeland. I am a radical Muslim offering you two choices just like the cartel in Mexico. You can either be a victim and a slave, or you can take silver or lead. I'll give you 4 bitches. You can collect tax. You can become a warlord or fight for a prominent warlord. And you can either get the glory, the fame, the riches, the bitches, or you can be my fucking slave and I'll just work you to death and victimize you. So in the vacuum,
Good points. Good points. I hear you.
Like this the same system in Mexico. Do you see the moderate Mexicans winning, or do you see the cartel spreading all throughout Latin America?
That's a good point. That's a very good point. But let me ask you this. Do you believe that in 2026, the mafia in the United States is more or less engaged in legitimate business than it was in the 1960s, 50 years ago?
More, obviously more. They had to go underground and morph and metastasize into a different...
So it's more legitimate than it was before because they had to metastasize. Right? Don't you think that if radical Islam takes over in the region and America evaporates as an antagonist in the region, that over time it will become more legitimate, more moderate?
Yes, but that process...
I mean, you have to keep in mind that in the United States of America, this is something Tim Pool mentioned. I'm not trying to, kiss his ass. But when the Constitution was written, freedom of speech applied to everything except for blasphemy, right?
Yep.
Right? And so the United States of America was religiously more radical or unified. There was more consensus, at the beginning of our nation 250 years ago, where even though we had free speech and freedom of religion, it was really freedom of religion among Christian sects and denominations, not freedom of every religion. And freedom of speech was political speech, but didn't really apply to blasphemy, right? We were a radical kind of Christian country back then, despite the fact that so many of our founding fathers were deists or very secular. As a culture, we were much more radically religious and for lack of a better term, it's got a negative connotation, but superstitious than we are today. I believe that we'll see the same thing with Islam without the presence of American antagonism, where yes, it'll start out radical and corrupt, and there'll be terrorism over there instead of over here. But I believe over time it'll level out and it'll moderate. It's not self-sustaining if America leaves. We are keeping the radicalism empowered over there, not just because of our direct funding, but because we give all of them a common enemy despite their internal struggles, weaknesses, and differences. And the radicals can blame the United States of America for starvation issues, for bombing issues, for terrorism, whatever. And that's just not going to work if we leave.
Yeah. I'm going to take this time. Wow, what an enlightening discussion. I love that little debate with you.
Love you.
Shout out to Leroy45 Long. Thank you for the super chat. He says, love you, Chase, but with all due respect, that idea is retarded. We won't have a country left after 4 to 8 years of communist rule. Shout out Honey Badger. Thank you for the super chat. He says, justice be done. May the heavens fall. Let it happen in my time so my children need not fight. Wow, it's very poetic. Shout out SRT, not foreign, the win. Thank you very much for the super chat. He says, I'm a white guy. I can't afford 4 years of socialist. Shout out Mr. C, USA.
Thanks for all your support for the show.
Thank you guys so much for your support.
I know I'm saying some controversial stuff, and I'm not advocating for communism or socialism. I'm just saying that we have two choices. We have the choice between a massive amount of discomfort for a short period of time or an ever worsening small degree of discomfort for an extended period of time to an irreversible point of terminal extinction or death of Americanism permanently. So I think we have to take the hit now, similar to my feeling about the dollar, before we allow the development of this scam to become bigger and bigger. Because every year that goes by that we allow the establishment political infrastructure to exist adds 100 pounds to the weight of the impact that we're going to feel when it finally and inevitably collapses. Same economically, same politically. So I advocate for massive disruption over a short period of time, immediately, over subtle disruption over a long period of time, which would be permanently cataclysmic. I do not believe that America will be the United States of America unless we solve the GOP neoconservative. I think the neoconservative threat on the right is a greater threat to our national security than Islamism or communism. Obviously, communism's real, deadlier than fascism, worst thing ever. Obviously, I'm opposed to Islam, right? These are issues, but America is not really a communist nation. And despite the fact that Islam is rapidly growing in the United States of America, it still represents a very small fraction of the demographic makeup of the United States, right? And so if we stay home and let these radical leftist Mamdani types, the party of this Marxist Islamist sentiment, take over for just 4 years, they will not have enough consensus or political momentum to totally destroy or enact a revolution in this country. But they will be able to do enough damage to unify the American populist America First movement and empower them to redefine the grand old party, eradicate neoconservatism over the 4-year period, and then take total control in 2032 or 2033. I really believe that. It's risky. I know. I'm not saying that, I'm not insisting that I'm right, but my intuition now is if we vote for the GOP because we're scared of Islamism and Marxism, then we empower this neoconservative, Zionist, international, politically corrupt Epstein class cabal, and we just deepen our own corruption. We deepen the hole. We dig a deeper hole for ourselves as a nation that's going to be more difficult to come out of than the hole that we would dig if we allow the American people to be unified under a little bit of suffering for a short period of time.
This is the best example.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's a little Machiavellian. I don't disagree. I think the only place where chat disagrees where you say let them. This is how I'm going to describe it. America is a hamburger still going to be eaten because it is going to a biblical timeline. Every prophecy in the Bible, for the most part, has been fulfilled, except for like the last 20%. And the timeline's there to be fulfilled. You see everything lining up. There's never going to be a political solution to save this experiment because of human nature.
I disagree, though. Because
you think politics is going to save us?
Human nature has always been the same, and there was a political solution to the Weimar Republic. It wasn't the right solution, but there was a political solution to the Weimar Republic.
No, because it led to the destruction of their nation. We're looking at only at the end of a certain timeline, not the totality of it.
So you're saying because it's biblical.
Yes.
See, I believe that it's just as likely that the prophecies in Revelation describe events that occur 1,000 years from now, as it is likely that the prophecies in Revelation describe events that will occur 5 years from now. Everybody seems to think that we're in end times, but they always do, and they always have. And the end will come like a thief in the night. This is something that Jesus himself said. So, frankly,
he said his return comes like a thief in the night. Not the 4 horsemen, not the trumpets and seals. Dude, we're in the age of AI. We're in the age of Neuralink. We have a satellite grid that's forming a prison around the planet for the first time in modern history. You don't see all the technology. Like I was saying, each branch of the PayPal mafia is building one branch of the Antichrist
I'm saying
system.
That because everybody thinks the end is coming.
It's coming?
It's not.
What?
Yet. Not yet.
Shout out Mr. C, USA Patriot. Thank you for the super chat. He says, none of us have to be right. We just need to keep this discourse going. What a great discussion. Should we watch what that fucking retard Sneako said in New York?
Yeah, let's do that.
Clip 109, PBD on Sneako.
There's a clip that you sent me that we were watching yesterday together in New York City. And this is a different clip. This is a different clip, a complete different kind of a takeover that we're talking about. And it was with Sneako. I don't know if you have that clip or not. And Elon reacted to it. Alex Jones reacted to it. People were saying, deport him, deport him. Here's what the reaction looks like. Go ahead, if you want to play. Is that the whole thing?
This is him.
Go ahead, play. So this is in New York City, and he's praising Mamdani, and listen to the words, and listen to the intensity, and listen to the passion. Go for it.
Allahu Akbar! Oh no! Fuck you! This is the Islamic Republic of New Yorkistan. Islam will be in every household. Inshallah, the whole world is Muslim. Welcome to Mamdani's New York.
This is New York City, folks.
You see this city?
Yep.
You see how it looks?
Mamdani's
Inshallah,
New York.
Your city looks just like this too.
Inshallah, your city looks just like this. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's happening. That's why we have to address every enemy. We don't even have to let them. It's going to happen. It was always
Islam
going
is
to
not
go
going to
this
fucking
way.
take over in the United States. Not, I mean, it might, but it'll be at least a century from now. It's not, dude. Man, the country is what, 63% white. Even when we're a minority in this country, we're still going to be the largest majority. Entirety. Listen, man. Let me finish. Let me cook for a second. The entirety of Central and South America is Catholic. There's two religions growing right now in the world. There's Islam, which is rapidly growing, largely because of our terrorism overseas, unifying people.
And the birth rate.
100% the birth rate.
4-1.
And there's Catholicism, right? People are returning to conservative values, especially young men, because they've seen what this hedonistic, sexualized, bullshit, woke leftist culture does, right? So you've got two types of people. You've got the Sneakos, who embrace Islam because they believe in traditional values, which Islam, at least purports to support. And then you've got like the Charlie Kirks or the others who are converting to Catholicism because it's the Christian version of the conservative trad embrace. And what I'm saying is that here in the United States of America, because of our history, because of our current demographic makeup, because of the makeup of Central and South America, we are way more likely to see a massive surgence in Catholicism than we are to see a surgence in Islam here in the United States of America. The only way that Islam grows here, there's two ways. One is massive migration of Muslims to the United States of America, and two is massive birth rates among the Islamic community. We're seeing the massive birth rates here. We've seen that the Islamic community in the United States of America has grown due to these birth rates. But there's so few of them here in the United States of America that in order for Islam to take over by that way, it's going to take many decades, if not 100 years. So then the only real way that over a short period of time Islam would take over the United States of America is if there was massive migration to the tune of millions upon millions. However, that migration would always be subverted by Central and South American migration, which is Catholic. Like, I'm telling you, man, the future of America is not going to be Islam. It's not. It could be leftist. It could be Marxist. It could be some, neo-technocratic, bullshit. Most likely military industrial class, billionaire kind of technocratic class taking over. And we've talked about that incessantly. But Islam is not going to take over.
We are one race-specific bioweapon away from the collapse of the U.S. economy and the white genetic haplogroup to be
if that fucking happens,
diminished.
that happens, then it doesn't matter how you vote in 28.
That's what I'm saying. There ain't no political solution, dude.
Yeah, the political
they
solution.
They have the race-specific bioweapons. We have them. The Iranians have them. The Chinese have them. The Russians have them. We're all going to use them on each other.
Do you think that the Chinese want to deal with an Islamic United States of America?
I think the Chinese would allow Islam to destroy and weaken the United States and then destroy them with race-specific bioweapons.
So you think the Chinese might destroy all whites in the United States of America with some, manufactured pandemic in order for leftism and Islam to take over, and then they would eradicate those segments in a second wave, and then when everybody's gone, they would just kind of buy up all the assets and take control of the.
Well, they don't even need to buy up the assets. They just come here because anyone that could be left fighting has already been exported into World War III and died, or they're in lockdown, fearful for their life, fearful to even come into contact with another person to reproduce. Thank you. We talked about.
Yeah, the Muslims are gonna take some congressional seats. They're gonna take some of the major leftist cities because everybody else who's reasonable evacuated these places. Mm-hmm. But they're never gonna take the country, man. I mean, I can't argue against a bioweapon. That's possible.
They've already proven they would do it. I'm not talking about conspiracy here.
I know they can do it, but that they would do it?
Yes, because the main problem with bioweapons is that there was blowback. It's like the same thing as using nukes. You want the territory, you want the ground, you don't want to poison it and radiate it for 1,000 years. But with race-specific bioweapons, there is little to no blowback. And more than one player has them. And if history has shown the United States sets the example using nukes first, the United States sets the example using HIV, using COVID-19, developing it.
If they use a bioweapon against Caucasians in the United States of America and they allow radical leftist Islamists to take power in the United States of America, they have created an unhinged nuclear power because the nukes are still here, bro. China won't do that, man. They will not fucking do that. They might use targeted bioweapons to kill individuals, you know, based on their DNA profile. I know the tech is all there, but there is no way that they will intentionally manufacture a pandemic that only takes out white people in the United States. That would be the dumbest shit ever. They won't do it, man. They might do it if we're about ready to just totally annihilate their entire country.
Look at it this way. This would be a conspiracy theory if all the superpowers didn't develop them, weren't sitting on them, didn't put the billions of dollars into R&D, if the superpowers didn't have a history of doing this in the past. And we know that history doesn't always repeat, but it rhymes. And the more desperate you are as a superpower...
See, but that goes to my argument too. History does rhyme. And I'm saying that what happens in the United States of America in 2032...
stays in the United States.
It rhymes with what happened in Germany in 1932.
Yes, but then what happened to Germany? That also matters.
I understand,
will happen to the United
but
States.
It doesn't repeat. It rhymes.
Oh, so we have to get destroyed.
The current political establishment has to get destroyed. I'm saying that the form of radicalism that takes over in the United States in 2032 is a different form of right-wing radicalism than the nature of what happened with Mussolini and what happened with Hitler. It will rhyme. It will be a cousin, but a cousin is not the same as a man himself. Just like Cain said, am I my brother's keeper? Closely related, very similar, but obviously it played out differently. I'm just hoping it plays out better and not worse.
Well, let's go to these other. So, Sergey Brin. So if you want to know what's about to come, you look at the elites because they get the information first. If we play clip 111, Sergey Brin fled New York and sold real estate at a $70-something million loss because he's getting the fuck out of there right now. That's one of the co-founders of
It's taken another hit.
Google
co-founder and billionaire Sergey Brin reportedly dumped his stake in a New York City investment fund for pennies on the dollar. Landlords are suffering from rent controls and explosive costs under Zohran Mamdani's administration. And Brin, well, he just wanted to get out before it was too late. All right, Charlie, I want to come to you on this here because the numbers suggest he took a $75 million loss on this.
Tell me more about this. I need more context, Bak.
Oh, I have the context. So he's getting out because this is my theory, but I think it's very well supported. Mamdani is coming in. Remember when he first caught flack his first month of mayor because there was no snow removal, no trash removal? Remember I was telling you about the mutant rats and how diseases...
Yes.
He's purposefully devaluing and crashing the financial capital of the United States and one of the financial capitals of the world because he's going to come in with his wealthy Muslim backers and they're going to fill the gap once it's
Muslim
diminished.
From where?
Probably the Gulf Coast states, in my opinion. He's completely Islamifying New York right now with the prayer, calls to prayer, violating all the noise ordinances.
He's killing the market in New York so that his buddies can buy it and then it reappreciates in New York.
And then they have full control. There's actually a history of a lot of radical Muslim groups doing this. And at the same time, you see the alliance because in the Democratic Civil War right now, you're either going to be pro-capitalist, blue dog centrist Democrat, or you're going to align with the socialist radical wing. And if you go blue dog Democrat centrist, you're not winning. So the party's eating its own right now.
Do you think that white right-wing sentiments in Europe are more prevalent now than they were 25 years ago?
Yes.
Because of the violence and the terrible rape and shit that's happened as a result of...
Yes.
So what I'm saying...
But do I think they're going to win? No. What's stacked against them is internalist traitors who brought these marauders in the first place, the Zionist techno-fascist wing. It's the same thing over here. Top bun, Zionist fascists. Bottom bun, Islamist Marxists. Us in the middle getting chewed from both sides.
See, but the difference is in Europe, they had a much more massive influx of Islam over a very short period of time.
And they don't have guns.
Exactly.
That's why I don't think they're going to win.
We've got a slow drip here, and we have guns. And so what I'm saying is that when the Mamdanis and the Ilhan Omars and others do this egregious shit, which I agree with you that they're doing, that actually awakens the sleeping giant of.
And then cue the race-specific
people.
bioweapons.
They're not. China won't do that, dude.
A satanic elite have already built out deep underground military base infrastructures. Fleeing.
Dude, the satanic elite are white.
Yes.
If they use a race-specific bioweapon,
they're not going to be on the surface when it's released.
They're going to be in orbit?
They're either going to be
on their islands?
Yes, they're going to be on their islands. They're going to be in their deep underground military bases. That's why this breakaway civilization has been prepared. That's why 21 trillion to 50-something trillion has been skimmed. That's why Bill Gates has 11 bunkers. That's why Peter Thiel is fleeing to Argentina.
Do it, man. What it would do to Russia,
we
too.
Could do
what
it
would do to Russia, too.
We could do it to ourselves.
Why would we do it to ourselves?
Because it eliminates anyone who would have opposed them. It eliminates the Russians for balkanization. It eliminates any group that would oppose you.
They don't have to eliminate white people in order to manifest their technocratic takeover. They're doing it right now.
Israel might even do it. The traitors in America might do it. The ruthless communists in China might do it.
The Israelis are largely European, ethnically. We know this.
Well, then what is this whole underground civilization that we know has been built out? What is it for? Continuity of government just for the United States?
I think when you reach a point in your life where you have everything you could possibly want and infinite resources, you start getting interested in very obscure. Think about it like this. Imagine if aging was cured and all diseases were cured, hypothetically speaking, right?
I'm under the impression it already
yeah, but imagine if, like, on a large scale, at a critical mass, people no longer aged or got sick, right? You were going to be just like you are indefinitely. I'm going to be just like I am indefinitely. What are the things that you become obsessively paranoid with at that point?
Someone potentially killing me.
Yeah, murder, car crashes, lightning strikes.
Yeah.
Meteor strikes, nuclear Apollo.
It's like Highlander. You can't die unless you get your head cut off.
The only way you die is like an act of God or a natural disaster or just like insane physical trauma, right? That's what you become obsessed with. So what I'm saying is that these elites that have these billions of dollars, the Zuckerbergs, the Peter Thiels, even the Ivanka Trumps and the Kushners, they have solved every problem except for obscure contingencies or obscure anomalies. And so all they have, since they have so much capacity to think about whatever they want and do whatever they want, all they're concerned with is like the little shit that's left. It's like when you play a video game like Civilization and you wipe out, the massive opponent, and then you become obsessed with taking over this little island and that little island just so you can clean up the whole map. These people are obsessed with bunkers and stuff, not necessarily, probably to some extent, because they expect an apocalypse, but I think mostly because all they have to worry about now are like obscure possible outcomes. So when you have all those resources, you know what? Why not build a fucking bunker? It's like the only thing I kind of have to worry about. I've solved every other problem I can solve. So I don't think they're building these bunkers because they anticipate a massive bioweapon or they plan to instigate one, in order to catalyze a technocratic takeover. I think they're building these bunkers because they've already bought everything else. And what's left to build or buy?
Dude, there's a pattern that reoccurs with these elites where the richer you get, the more hedonistic and ruthless you get. It's not a coincidence that half these motherfuckers are gay in building bunkers, the more money they get.
Hey, I don't think what you're saying is incompatible with what I'm saying.
No, yeah. I actually, the only place I kind of disagree with you in this last 3 minutes of discussion is I don't think they're anticipating it. I think they're planning it. And if they're not planning it, they know one of the other great power centers are and willing to do it.
I think ultimately what the technocrats are planning is total ownership of labor and information.
They don't need your labor anymore. It's why they're building the robots.
That's what I'm saying.
Which if they
own the robots, that's total ownership of labor, not human labor, but labor.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
They want total ownership of labor and information so they can control the masses and not need the masses. And yes, that is a recipe for disaster, but they don't need to do some of the extreme things that you're saying they might do. And as of yet, it might come to a point where
once
they do.
Once they start losing control, they will.
Yeah, but dude,
they're getting ahead of that.
If we stay home in 2028 the next 4 years will be terrible, but it will not be terrible enough to ruin our country. It'll be just terrible. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It'll be just terrible enough that we'll bounce back and we'll have the opportunity to rhyme with Germany 100 years ago without inevitably manifesting the same outcome that Germany manifested for itself.
What is Antifa? What is the history of balkanization?
Antifa is a George Soros-funded
I think
terrorist
we're going
organization.
to a civil war when this swing back happens. I think states are going to secede. I think you already see it in the body politic.
I'll tell you why states will never secede. And I think everything you're saying is reasonable and interesting, so I'm not just trying to undermine everything you say. The reason states won't secede, like they did in the first Civil War, dude, we talked about this a little bit on Timcast, is because all of the states are financially dependent on the federal government, and they cannot afford to secede.
Yeah, but once it becomes insolvent,
there might be a civil war in the United States of America, but it won't be states seceding like the last Civil War. It'll be urban versus rural communities. It'll break out.
So it'll be an interstate civil war where the federal government still has control in some pockets.
It'll be Memphis versus fucking
Nashville.
Hendersonville versus Nashville. Yeah, Nashville's not a really good example because it's such a moderate left. But it would be Austin, Texas versus Paris, Texas, and all the other small towns that no one's ever heard of in Texas, right? So yeah, it'll be within all the states. It won't happen that way.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if there is a civil war in response to the right winning in 2032 and leftists being hyper funded and hyper radicalized, they'll fucking lose, because the cities need the rural communities more than the rural communities.
And then what
need
happens
the cities.
after the Civil War?
And the leftists aren't armed like the.
That's not true. Leftists have been buying guns in droves since COVID.
I know, but your average fucking...
We can't assume that, Chase.
Listen, man, your average, college-educated
lesbian
white woman that's never been married, right? Taylor Swift doesn't have a fucking gun. Maybe she does because she's a celebrity.
Taylor Swift's got teardrops on her guitar.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is, if the Civil War is really rural versus urban, and it is right versus left,
black versus white,
the right will win. If the
Christian versus Muslim,
if the right has the federal government, the right will win. So if radical right wing takes over at the federal level,
let me extrapolate past that. I'm going to actually shout this out real quick. Leroy 45 long, thank you for the super chat. This is directed at you, Chase. Hope and change, the Barack Obama line. This is the problem with, if the United States ever even descends into a civil war, that weakens us up for us to be invaded. So it's not just a bioweapon release,
China
a civil war.
China
it's a
hasn't
land
even,
invasion of the continental United States right after that.
China hasn't even figured out how to invade Taiwan yet, dude.
No, they have been waiting.
Do you realize, dude?
Remember we've been talking about the deal that's been cut?
Do you realize the fucking nightmare that is invading the United States of America, even if we're in the midst of a civil war?
And
it's a nightmare,
But what about
dude.
this? Biological weapons release, balkanization of the United States, currency collapse, infrastructure failure because we get hit because people are sabotaging the transformers everywhere.
You hit us with a bioweapon, you get fucking nuked.
Civil war, right? You can't direct a military that you can't pay. Soldiers don't man their stations when they have to worry about going home to their families. A continuity government structure will, with these deep underground military bases, and we will still have some semblance of our nukes, but that whole military infrastructure gets hollowed out. You can't project power anymore. You can't organize defense anymore.
Here's the thing that you're missing.
And then you get invaded.
Here's the thing that you're missing about breakaway civilization, in my opinion, with few exceptions like the 1,000 billionaires there are. The breakaway civilization, the infrastructure for it, is being designed and built by the military-industrial complex and the political-industrial complex, the political establishment, right? So the entity that gets to use and exploit the breakaway civilization resources and infrastructure
are reptilian.
Listen, that entity changes. So right now, if there's a massive cataclysm, the Trump administration gets to use it. Before, if there was a massive cataclysm, the Biden administration. That's the difference between like what you're saying is like,
that's a very fair point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very fair point.
In the event that a neo-right is in formal political power federally in the 2030s here in the United States of America, and there is a massive cataclysm, catalyzed by China, the breakaway civilization is not going to be used just by a Peter Thiel or a Zuckerberg. Of course, them too. It's not going to be used by, you know, the Chinese or whatever. It's going to be used by whatever political power is in place. I'm saying that if there is a civil war in the 2030s, the neo-right wins, and it's incredibly unlikely that there's any invasion from a third party, and that in the event that there is a bioweapon that's used, or the claim that there will be a bioweapon used during that time.
I'm the one claiming that.
It just seems very unlikely that China would do that. China would be better off if a neoconservative party, not a neoconservative party, a neo-right or an alternative right established power in the United States of America and dominated indefinitely, because it would be more isolationist. It would be America first. They'd be able to do whatever they wanted to do in their hemisphere. We would no longer be a serious threat to them, constantly funding proxies to undermine their Belt and Road Initiative. I mean, we would literally just be like, you know what? You can fucking have that side of the world. We're going to figure out our side of the world. China would actually want right-wing extremism and xenophobia to take over the United States of America. And what's more, not just would it be politically convenient to the CCP or to the Chinese, but it would be philosophically aligned with them, because they themselves believe in homogeny. They themselves are a xenophobic people. And they themselves, I believe and espouse that other nations should be, the Russians should be the Russians, and the Chinese should be the Chinese, and the Koreans should be the Koreans, and the Vietnamese should be the Vietnamese. They believe in homogeny. And so if we succeed in establishing homogeny, or at least cultural consensus here in the United States that's right-wing and America first, it plays directly into the interests of China for a litany of reasons, at least for the next 100 years. And they would not get in the way of that, dude.
I just don't see any indications. Why do you think China's rapidly expanding their nuclear arsenal? Why do you think China's rapidly expanding their ship tonnage and their shipbuilding capacity? Why do you think there's a race in energy-directed weapons, in race-specific bioweapons?
Because the United States is still an international threat.
We're leaving the age of mutually assured destruction, and we're entering the age of which superpower strikes first wins. That's and you see the political. We see the political alignment, dude. Like America would be very hard to conquer. I just want to make this one point. But you live in the age where every superpower has HARP. So they could hit us with directed energy weapons, earthquake weapons, miniaturized neutron bombs, race-specific bioweapons, create balkanization, collapse the currency, wait for 2 to 4 years for us to eat each other. It's not one thing, dude. And all of these capacities have been fully developed. And I'm going to take this time to also shout out Leroy45 Long. I think he loves our argument. Thank you for the super chat. If you get the socialists in first, they get the keys, bro. Think. You don't control the timeline. Directed at you, Chase. So I think we have our antiquated thinking systems. We're not thinking about warfare in the next 20 years.
If you allow Chamberlain to have power for a short period of time, you guarantee Churchill gets power indefinitely.
Bro, we live in the age where you could wipe the surface clean in 2 weeks.
I know that we have the technology to destroy the species on the planet.
And we're not the only ones.
I know that. But what I'm saying is purely from a political perspective. If the left wins in 2028, 4 years will not be enough for the left to completely destroy the country. It will be enough for them to impose so much damage that it unifies the rest of us.
I'm not looking for a political solution, bro. I don't think one's coming.
I am. I'm looking for a political solution because I fucking hate war.
War's coming. Every great superpower is building up the biggest arsenals ever seen in modern history.
If there was a political solution,
Chase.
If there was a political solution to the Weimar Republic, then there's a political solution to...
The Weimar Republic didn't have race-specific bioweapons and directed energy weapons and earthquake guns. They didn't have the things we have. They didn't have AI-directed weapon systems.
I understand, but the Weimar Republic...
Think about the combat robots. Think about Skynet.
The Weimar Republic was just as vulnerable to total eradication as we are now. It was a small nation, legally unable to have a military because of the Treaty of Versailles. France could have fucking eradicated it at any moment. Any number of other European competitors or whatever, or neighbors, could have fucked with the Weimar Republic. I mean, it was in a very vulnerable position from a national security standpoint, dude.
Leroy Long, thank you for the super chat again. He says 8, meaning I think 8 years. Should we? There's only one. I'm going to say one last thing to end cap this discussion. The only solution to the world's incoming problems is a man on a white horse. His name is Jesus Christos. Closing comment on the discussion? It's all biblical, baby.
Jesus rode donkeys.
Yeah, but he's coming back on a horse this time.
Upgrade, motherfucker!
Upgrade! Can we play clip 112? We can see Newsom already making his move. And it's pertinent because of how many House seats California
That's what I'm saying.
has.
You let a Newsom win in 28, he's going to be not competent enough. Redistribution of wealth is explicitly Marxist.
California's what, the 4th largest economy on the planet?
Top 10 for sure.
Yeah. So, and how many House seats does it have in the United States?
I don't know, but disproportionate amount because of all the illegal migrants that are counted in the consensus there.
And if all the Islamists and the Hindus are moving to Texas to form their own little enclaves, if California stays blue to the corruption, fraud, and them driving out anyone who would be a business owner, which typically leans conservative, and then they take Texas because Texas is purple, what is the future of the United States?
It's not Republican.
Exactly. And then if they come in and maintain the fraud because they don't pass the SAVE Act and they reopen the borders and re-import another 20 to 30 million refugees, can the United States ever recover from that politically?
I don't know.
My Chinese nuts are telling me no, and I'm not even Chinese, which is why I don't think there's a political solution to this.
So in the last gubernatorial race in Texas, Greg Abbott won the election with 54% of the vote, 4.43 million votes versus Beto O'Rourke's 3.5 million votes.
That bucktooth faggot, dude.
So listen, man. Listen, the last gubernatorial race was in 2022. Greg Abbott, 54%. Beto O'Rourke, 43%. Libertarian, 1.3%. Abbott defeated O'Rourke by about 10.9 percentage points. Slightly narrower than his 2018 margin of 55.8%. But still a clear victory in a state that has been Republican-leaning for decades. So the point I'm trying to make is, yes, it's probably true that Texas is gradually becoming more left, but the numbers are not enough to flip the state in the next several cycles.
But what rapidly accelerates that? If a Democrat administration comes into power and they open the borders, Texas is a frontline border state.
Yeah, but you have to keep in mind when they open the borders, they bring in the Mexicans, man. And the Mexicans are Catholic.
Mexicans actually have been... They have a socialist democratic government right now.
I know. They tend to vote
from
left.
the NGOs.
They tend to vote left, but they also believe in Western values and Christianity.
And it's not just Mexico you're dealing with.
They're never like the type. If they open the borders of Texas, the type of migrants
they're
going to
bring in Haitians, bro. That's the type of voters that they're going to bring in.
But if you bring in the Haitians, you got to also, when you open the gates, you open the gates. So you can't just bring in the Haitians and not the Mexicans.
They were doing that they were deporting right-wing Venezuelans when they surged the border. They absolutely
That's true.
can
You're
do
right.
that.
And they blocked the Cubans from coming over.
The right wing, the ones escaping communism. Shout out to Colby Upston. Thank you so much for the super chat. She says, the Father in heaven controls time, not us. I'm with Chase on that. And then shout out again, Colby. She says, you're rocking it tonight, gentlemen. Yeah, you guys heard a 2-hour-long argument between me and Chase.
It's the last show I'm ever doing with Buck.
So I have a couple more important points, which alludes to my biblical timeline. If we we can skip a couple of these clips. And if we go to clip 115, Trump is going to the NATO summit in Turkey, which is rapidly becoming a publicly declared enemy by Israel. Israel's preparing another strike package on Iran.
Peace agreement can finally bring an end to the region's conflicts.
Egypt is now getting ready to mass its forces. They're directly on the borders of the Greater Israel Project. They're very close to Israel itself, and they're a major military force, almost as strong as Turkey. If Egypt and Turkey ally...
Well, and after the Arab Spring, too, Egypt basically had a total military takeover of the government. So, military calls the shots there now.
And Obama put the more radical sect of the Egyptian government in power, and they've been in power ever since.
And weaponized Twitter in order to accomplish.
And Egypt's the one that controls the border with Gaza. They're the ones that allow supplies in and out. They know about the tunnels. They probably put a lot of those radicals and assisted them into the Palestinian territory. So we're seeing a super long game where Israel's like Turkey's aren't the next Iran. We have to keep expanding, keep fighting. We're now selling weapons to Turkey because they're this great ally of NATO and in NATO. At the same time, Turkey's playing a double shell game with us, being BRICS aligned, taking Russian weapon systems along with the United States, sitting on the fence, seeing who's going to win and how far this war expands. At the same time, the whole Islamic world is being galvanized against Israel and against America, essentially, because Israel carries out a lot of American interests in the Middle East. It's a game within a game within a game.
I have no doubt that Islam will successfully take over the Middle East, including Israel, in the coming years or decades. I just don't believe they're going to take over the United States. I believe that here in the United States of America, when we see the Mamdanis and we see others of this leftist persuasion, it's our culture is just not as vulnerable or submissive as Europeans when it comes to meeting this type of political opposition. Europeans they're entrenched in their history, in their culture, and they've been at war with each other for so long and invaded by each other for so long, and they come from a culture of monarchy. They believe in submission to royal families. I mean, even when the English basically eradicated all royal political power, they loved the royalty so much that they continue to prop it up. It's a completely different mentality, intuition, just genetic code of their culture than to the American culture. And even though we have been eroded, and even though we're 60% white instead of 90% white, and Christianity's kind of been eroded here in the United States of America, our response to Islamic or leftist influence domestically will not be submissive like the Europeans over the last 20 years, especially since the powers that be do not have a monopoly over speech here in the United States of America. We've got guns. That's one thing that's different about us versus Europe. And the second thing, more importantly, that's different about us versus Europe is at least substantially, relatively rather, we have freedom of speech. I know that the government has, had Mockingbird and manipulated the narrative, and I know they manipulate free speech on social media platforms with the exception of X and Rumble and a number of others. But this happened in Europe because they made it illegal to speak out against it while they did it, and then it became too late, right?
Now all you hear is
and it's just not going to happen in the United States the same. What will happen is the Mamdanis, the Ilhans will win. There's, I think, 18 cities here in the United States of America that are effectively run by Sharia law because they're so densely populated with Muslims that's what's happening. But it's not going to reach a critical mass where it has a takeover. It will reach a point where it's harmful and destructive and disruptive, but that disruption, that destruction will awaken our true identity, our true culture, just like Japan awakened us in World War II, just like Germany was awakened after World War I. You have to keep in mind that European people, white people, Western people better of America.
Man, you're catching a lot of flack from chat. I got to shout these out. Thank you, Mr. C, USA Patriot, for the super chat. These next two are directed at you, Chase.
Oh, shit.
You underestimate the power of the school system to indoctrinate the children.
You underestimate the power of the dark
side. They already
side.
grow up hating our system.
That's kind of true, but that's mostly a millennial thing. Keep in mind, Gen Z largely does not believe that Helen Keller was deaf and blind, despite the fact that our school system insists to them that she was. Gen Z and Gen Alpha are not the same as millennials. Millennials came up in the education system when there was naivete and trust and no internet and no context. And so, yes, ever since basically massive inflation in the 1970s through up until the social media age, the information age, it's true that our generations were manipulated successfully by the leftist Marxist influence on our education system. 100% agree with you, but it's not going to fucking fly with Gen Z and Gen Alpha for a number of reasons. First of all, they have the internet, they have social media, and so they understand the capacity for bullshit among establishment institutions. They don't trust everything that they see or believe because they grew up with an internet that you can't really trust. And they're totally familiar with and welcome alternative thoughts. That's the first one. The second one is the education system over the last 50 years consistently abused our people and our children so much financially, in that they bestowed this massive debt on minorities and regular people, the student loan debt, only to get degrees that didn't guarantee jobs whatsoever. So everyone's gone through the education system feeling like it ensured that they were going to accomplish a sustainable income, only to find that actually that's not going to happen whatsoever because nobody gives a shit about your degree. It's all about who you know and what you can do. And so if you don't know anyone, you can't do anything.
What that mouth do?
Yeah. So I don't think that the coming generations, post the millennial generation, have any buy-in to the education system whatsoever.
Then Leroy's letting you have it too. Thank you so much for the super chat. Give it 8 years, Chase. I'm sure it'll be fine. Just like the UK, right?
Yeah. Hey man, I could be wrong. All I'm saying is that if we continue to elect the Republican Party of Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz and sell out United States interests to our foreign allies whom we allow to blackmail us, if we continue to elect a Republican Party that covers for the Epstein class and insists that these things are just a necessary evil in order to further manifest the political interests or the national security interests of the United States of America, when that system of corruption collapses or directs its attention and malice on the American people, that will be a much more insurmountable obstacle, a much larger degree of suffering among American people than a little temporary pain from retarded Marxists for a 4-year period of time. We have to establish massive consensus against the left, and the only way that's going to happen is if people get a taste of what leftism really does. Keep in mind, the reason Donald Trump won in 2024, among the reasons, one of the main reasons that Donald Trump won in 2024 is because America developed a semblance of consensus against the left after it saw what Joe Biden was capable of. Not just to mention his dementia, not to mention the fact that Hunter Biden was just depraved, not to mention the fact that there was just massive corruption and insider trading, not to mention the fact that there was massive censorship. And then everything the left did was just BS, silencing, antagonism, anti-American, criticisms against white people, saying that white supremacy was the greatest threat to national security in the United States of America. That little taste of the left caused the pendulum to swing and get Trump elected. Now Trump is disappointing everyone. It's going to swing back and we're going to have a more radical version of the left in power, 28. And that's going to disappoint everyone so much that as long as we can protect the integrity of our elections, this is the one vulnerability. In 2032, the right that wins will be a different right than the right that's in power now. And what we need to focus on, in my opinion, is ensuring that we clean our own house, that we purge our own political side or persuasion of all of the establishment saboteurs, so that when we do take power in 2032 or 2033, the party that takes power is not this bullshit, neoconservative, justice corrupt, uniparty, faux right, faux Christian, pro-Zionist party, but it's a truly America First party. Keep in mind that Hitler came to power on German nationalism with the promise of protecting, reestablishing German nationalism. That's what the people supported him for. And he proved himself to be a globalist with global aspirations and got involved in countless wars. And I know that it's nuanced and there's arguments about, hey, when he took that, that territory, he didn't really think that France was going to declare war on him and England, he didn't want any of that. Maybe it was Churchill's fault. I'm sympathetic to all of those perspectives, but ultimately his international actions did result in the fall of Berlin and the suffering of Germany for 50 years. So what we have to do is we have to ensure that the form of right wing that we are in the United States of America is the correct form to take all political power in 2032. We've got got 2 swings left before the wheel breaks. So prepare for the swing back in our direction. Prepare to catch that pendulum and ensure that only the correct version or manifestation of right-wing America First patriotism is along for the ride.
But what if this happens? Play clip 121.
What's coming up?
My next prediction is that I think Trump will get a 3rd term.
Okay, that's a little
Bullshit.
wild. All right. What makes you say that?
Well, first of all, he and his family have been stealing billions of dollars. That's a lot of corruption. So if he were to leave the office in 2028, you would imagine the first thing that any new administration would do is conduct an investigation. I also live in China, so I know how these things work. Basically, when someone gets in office and he's behaving like a tyrant, it usually means he's a tyrant. And it usually means he has no intention of ever leaving office. So then the question then is, would he get a 3rd term? You know, when Zelensky visited the White House, there was a White House gaggle, and basically the reporter asked Zelensky, hey, why haven't you had an election for the past, 4 years? And Zelensky is like, well, we're at war, so we suspend the Constitution.
Alex has been recently covering this. I think there are long odds. I don't think Trump has the health to finish out a 3rd term, but if this war does expand and we enter into a state of emergency, essentially the very beginning of the history books.
What's more likely to happen?
III.
What's more likely to happen is Trump resigning in the last 6 months of his administration, or 12 months, and J.D. Vance becoming the president, and J.D. Vance getting the next term, then Trump claiming his own term.
That very well
That's way
could
more
happen.
likely.
It would be, but this is something to keep an eye on. You see all the insider trading. You see all these, like, perfect example. Why, if you're funding Israel to the tune of billions of dollars a year, you're expending $30 billion to bomb Iran at the peril of your own economic agenda, then you go turn around and approve a $700 million arms deal to Turkey. You withdraw a $4 billion arms deal from Taiwan. What? Look at, this goes right into this too. Can we play clip 113?
Yeah, stand by. Is that 113, or is it just doing more B-roll?
It is 113.
Emergency services in Kyiv were hard at work on Monday morning, rescuing the wounded and evacuating residents to safety. Outside of this apartment block, family and friends gathered, waiting anxiously for those unaccounted for.
Russia launches deadly waves of missiles and drones at Kyiv, just like we predicted on the show last month.
The war is expanding in Europe.
Is the destruction in Moscow this substantial?
Yes. Moscow just got hit again.
This substantial?
More or less, yes. Because it's not just Ukraine hitting Moscow, it's NATO, too.
Covertly?
Yes.
Is that what Contact told you?
No, that's what I know.
Okay.
The ISR intelligence data comes from U.S. and NATO satellites. At the same time, so we see capital cities being bombed in the European theater. We see the dialectic of the NATO arms buildup at 5%, trillions of dollars more. We see at the same time Trump feeding nations that are sitting on the fence and potentially might even ally with our enemies like Turkey. We're hitting Iran. We're withdrawing support here, adding support there. When you would think it would go the other way, adding support to Taiwan, limiting arms shipments to Turkey because they're essentially a regional superpower that could oppose Israel. I might be not have been giving Trump credit.
We made a deal with China.
He's expanding wars all around. He's expanding the conditions for wars to expand or start. It's like lighting brush fires. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I put that clip with Jiang in there. He uses a model called game theory and predictive history. And he's been right on a ton of his predictions. So even Trump could potentially, there's a precedent for this, FDR, and it happened during a world war.
You got to keep in mind, though, that if we truly manifest and develop the Golden Dome,
it's the best dome in the world,
our need for a physical military presence terrestrially throughout the world is virtually eradicated.
No, because there's not just an AI arms race, a bioweapons arms race. There's a Golden Dome arms race.
I know.
We're not the only one building this.
But we're going to win. We're going to win.
That's an assumption.
It is an assumption, but I
actually agree with you. We're further along in space. That's what Elon is.
Yep. All the highest tech is U.S. companies.
But even if they have a primitive version of that, that means we're not the only player in the Golden Dome.
I know,
race.
but
we're not the only one given dome.
But space is the new frontier, and the further out in orbit the dome is, that is the new high ground. So,
of course, Space Force.
Yeah. So if we establish space dominance, we have virtually no need for military presence anywhere on the surface.
No, I disagree with that because that's a capability to enhance warfare, not to completely change warfare. It's defensive, offensive, but what wins wars? Boots on the ground.
Historically, but this is an unprecedented time.
This is, and when 3 countries, superpowers, are giving dome, all gloves are off, baby. I gotcha. I did have a lot of geological things. We don't have to necessarily cover it. I just fit it in my biblical timeline. Remember, in the Bible it says earthquakes, wars, rumors of wars, disease, rumors of disease, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions in diverse places. I'm obviously paraphrasing and chopping it up.
Well,
but
I think we should reserve that content for the Wednesday show.
Okay, cool.
I think we nailed the show tonight. Great broadcast. We hit the news about Tyler Robinson. We made our case against TPUSA, Erika Kirk, and in the official narrative that Tyler Robinson was solely responsible or involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And we covered the geopolitical news. We had a great argument about how this is going to play out and what we should do over the course of the next 10 years specifically. And it's been an honor and a pleasure to broadcast and speak with you, Bak, for the last 3 hours. This has been my favorite show that we've done so far. What I'm going to do as an outro is I'm going to play a 3-minute clip and just encourage everybody in the audience to please support us by going to chasegeiser.com. You can sign up for free. Obviously, we'd love for you to sign up as a founding member to help financially support the show and make this possible for Bak and I to do. If you're not in a position where you can afford to contribute at all financially, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Turn on bell notifications so you get notified every time that we go live, and share our content with anyone that you can, so that we can break through the algorithm and break through the dome that we're striking. In the meantime, please watch this 3-minute video.
Hold on, before you do that, can I shout out this last super chat?
Yes,
I don't
of
want
course,
to rob them
of course.
that. SRT, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you guys so much for your support. It means the world to me and Chase, so we can expand the network and get more shows, get more hosts. Fuck Gil Bates up, absolutely. He says you can't intercept Dolphin-class sub-nukes. Just saying. Shout out Mr. C USA. Thank you for this last-minute super chat. Best show you guys have done yet. We appreciate you guys so much. This is why we do it, man. Wow, thank you, Leroy, for the super chat. Still love you, Chase. No quarter. No
love
surrender.
You, Leroy. No surrender, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, I had the honor and pleasure of working with the great Alex Jones for a number of years at InfoWars.
Do you hear what I'm telling you? Do you hear me? Burning too good for you. Killing's too good for you.
As you know, InfoWars was shut down just a number of weeks ago, and in response to that shutdown, I decided to launch my own network to stay in the fight. I launched Chase Geiser Network at chasegeiser.com for the purpose of staying in the information war, because despite whatever they may do to InfoWars, the information war has just begun. In fact, it's escalating to a point beyond any point we've seen throughout our entire history as human beings walking on the face of this planet. With artificial intelligence ramping up, deep state data centers being built all over our nation, as well as this conflict with China in the AI arms race that's taking place right now, things are about ready to get really, really sketchy in terms of psychological operations, propaganda efforts, Mockingbird-esque efforts only powered by artificial intelligence, so that we see corruption in a way that we've never seen before. I'm calling upon all of you to subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/@ChaseGeiserNetwork. You can also get a link to it in my bio on X at @RealChaseGeiser. But most importantly, if you could, find it in your heart to go to ChaseGeiser.com. That's ChaseGeiser.com. and sign up as a foundational member. Cancel anytime. We're going to be streaming several times a week for several hours each time and ramping up the amount of content that we're creating to daily content, special reports. Now, if you go to chasegeiser.com and you sign up as a foundational member, you will have access to an exclusive community, direct contact with myself and my other hosts as well, and you'll be keeping us in the information war in this fight as it escalates. This fight is ultimately about defeating and overcoming evil which loves to lie and engage in deception. And we see that this administration is not everything that we hoped that it would be. And I'm very concerned that the future for the United States of America is in dire straits. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to come together, and instead of relying on one strong leader or somebody who seems to advocate for all of our specific wants and needs, we're going to have to come together as info warriors, support each other, and ensure that the truth is broadcast like never before.